Greetings and welcome to NTech Radio Broadcast. NTech Media Corporation, live here in Bridgetown, Barbados. And today we're going to be doing a special on the Palestinian plight out there in the Gaza. At this point, I'm just going to take a short break here to send my codes out, and I'll be right back with you in one piece. Hold on tight there. Greetings and welcome to NTech Radio, NTech Live. This is the Global Independence Square, coming to you from Bridgetown in Barbados. And today we have a special with our friends from the Palestinian Against Apartheid organization, CAP, as it is CAAP, will be joined over the next hour by a number of panelists who are, in fact, members of that organization. This is for all essential purposes. We've done some test runs before, but this is actually our first live broadcast since we left the other platform. So this is a first today, NTech Radio Live, coming to you from Bridgetown in Barbados. And joining me on the set is my co-host, my partner in crime here, Dr. Wayne Severall. Doc, say greetings. This is our first broadcast on the new system. It looks fantastic. I know we've been trying it out a little bit here and there, but
Right.
wow, to actually be doing it is a whole nother thing. We'll be joined by Ara in a little bit as soon as she does a thing or two. And
Greetings.
even Brother Roy might be joining us as well. Yeah.
Okay, great, great. Greetings, and it's good to be back to all our listeners and viewers. We missed you just as much as you missed us, and we are glad to be back with you to be adding our voices to the issues that are still raging all across the globe. So we are here to represent, to ensure that voices are heard, that people are not disadvantaged because they don't have access. And this is what we do here, provide that access so that voices can be heard, issues can be discussed, and hopefully solutions found to all the challenges that we face in our different spaces. So today we will focus on the Palestinian issue. Um, Lots of things have been happening, lots of ideas, suggestions about peacekeeping, lots of ideas about negotiations, ceasefires, and so on. But we know that these things change from day to day, and therefore we have to keep these issues at the forefront because they are very important to us here in the Caribbean as well as across the globe. And so we seek to ensure that those who have um, matters of concern, those who may have possible solutions, because all of these situations that we have are not situations that cannot be resolved. We just have to find the wherewithal, the ability to sit, to chat, to negotiate, and to find common ground that will allow us to arrive at solutions that are acceptable to all. Um, it is not easy to have situations where it's sort of a winner takes all kind of perspective. How can we find some win-win solutions? How can we find solutions that are amicable to both sides? Bearing in mind that there is a loss of life, loss of property, and lots of losses on both sides.
Liberty. Don't forget the liberty too. Loss of liberty,
Loss
of
of
course.
liberty, yeah, of course, of course. And that is very, very important. So we have to look at all these issues. Sometimes we get caught up in just looking at, who got killed and how many people died and so on. But then we have internal displacement. We have people who are displaced in their own land, people who have lost their homes, people who have lost their family. And as we were just reminded, freedom. Sometimes we overlook the freedom because we're so caught up in emotions of family and relatives and so on. But loss of liberty, very, very important. And sometimes we overlook this. right? Is something that we might take for granted. But when you lose it, trust me, it's very, very painful. Sometimes you never get it back.
No, I
Sometimes we
agree.
never get it back. So, these are the issues. So it's not just a situation of war, but also a situation of civil liberties, freedoms that we take for granted. And the whole issue of what is democracy, so that's a whole different ball game by itself.
Yes.
Sometimes we use these words so glibly, it sounds very matter of fact, but if we were to sort of dissect it and analyze it, we find that it is not as simple as we think. So this whole issue of democracy is something that must be debated, and probably on a separate agenda by itself. um, what does that really mean, especially for us in the Caribbean? And I was having a conversation like that. When was it? Probably about 3 days ago, in reference to situations that were happening in Trinidad. And I was having that discussion with Brother Alistair, where certain editorials were taken sort of out of context, and people, the title was Men of Straw. I think that's what it was called, Men of Straw. And I said, okay, so what does that mean? And that whole article sought to put leadership and democracy in context. That leaders who are in position of power sometimes may overlook or not recognize that they have such privileges in their hands. And so, how do you square that with what people expect from you as the leader in terms of responsibility, in terms of accountability, in terms of integrity? And very often we have some challenges where people may not see that and just see, as you said some time ago, Brother Philip, the office of the Prime Minister or the office of the President. What does that stand for? What are the expectations of the public? And then do you live up to those expectations? And it was found that in this particular case, there was a very callous comment. And the issue was referred to as public vulgarity. And that sparked a whole storm by itself. So that the leader should not stoop so low as to make comments which may be perceived as beneath his office, so to speak. And I think that was the crux of the matter, that as leaders, you hold a special place in the land, and therefore much is expected of you in terms of integrity, in terms of accountability, in terms of responsibility. And so that office has to be respected at all times. You are perceived as a statesman or stateswoman, and therefore you need to act in that role and not out of character. You are not an ordinary person in the street. You're no longer an average citizen. You are now the prime minister or the president, or whatever title you may hold. And therefore, you represent that office. And you need to represent it with dignity and a certain level of professionalism. So these are some of the issues that are associated with liberties, civil liberties, persons who are high office holders. And, we talk about moral integrity, moral values. What are these things that sometimes we overlook? I think last Sunday, Caribbean Sovereign People's Concerns, we started talking a little bit about that. We were introduced to one of our colleagues, what's her name, Michelle Marshall, and she sort of touched on some of these issues. Our value systems. What foundations do we have? And it starts at home. It's nurtured in your school, So, family, school, other public institutions nurture these values. But if you don't have them, then, a lot of things can go awry. And therefore, the whole idea is to ensure that there is that balance, what we might call civics. It's not something that we teach these days, but it's something that we should revisit. What does it mean to be a citizen? What are your roles and responsibilities as a citizen? What are your roles and responsibilities as members of a family? Because from the family, you move on to become citizens, you become members of your society, of your country. What are your roles? It's just not enough to say public sector and private sector. What about the rest of the society? You know, they are all part of this society that we're referring to. So, as a member of the society, what what role would you play? What role should you play? And these are topics that we have not really spent a lot of time on. As it stands right now, we are transitioning to Republican status. So we are a republic, but what does that mean? What should this constitution look like? We are in the process of trying to rewrite it and so on. What should that look like? Is there a fundamental difference between Republican status and what we would have had before? What are those fundamental differences or fundamental values? They have implications for liberties, for civic liberties, civil liberties. And these are issues that we need to, have more debate, more discussion, because it helps people to be empowered because then they know their rights, as citizens. How many people would have gone through the Constitution, even the first few pages, to see what is there, what are my rights? These are issues. How many people know that the Haitian Constitution was taken over by the US way back when and rewritten in their favor? So what you're seeing now is the consequence of those actions, those deliberations.
And Doc, what bothers me about all of that is that we scream after this thing all the time called democracy. Democracy. I believe that needs to be prosecuted to its highest. And I mean, we keep calling this thing, we want democracy. And we keep saying we want democracy. And we have democracy. And we have it well. When you can take one country's sovereignty, violate it without discussion, you just violate it. You just take somebody's sovereignty. You take the constitution, which their people are sovereign to, and then you change it to disadvantage, disenfranchise, or in other words, this enable um, a people. That's a crime, and that should be a crime at the highest level.
Of
And it
course.
seems to me that there are those who practice that well, and then they turn around and somebody goes down the road and throw a window through the rock, and they're prosecuted because they're a criminal. Look what you just did. You didn't only destroy a person's sovereignty. You didn't only destroy their constitution, but you turned around and you destroyed their lives, their entire being. They're now a
Absolutely.
destroyed people. The slave trade should be viewed in such a manner as well. You had people walk into the river to catch water, gone into the woods to get a basket of food to come home to feed their families or whatever, um, and never made it home. Ended up, maybe 3, 4 weeks later in some place that they had no idea where it was, and you know, never to see their families again.
Yeah, and that is frightening.
We call
But
that democracy.
Yeah.
That's what we supposedly run to the polls every 4 or 5 years. In some cases, seven. I think there's some countries that have 7 years between elections. That's what we do. We run to those. We run to those places, and we we uh, we cast what we call a vote, veto, and we say this one's in, that one's out. You know, and we think that's democracy. Well, it probably is. Not probably. I would bet my last dollar. I would bet the kitchen sink that's democracy. And if you really understood what it meant, you wouldn't be so proud of it because it's not a good thing. Never has been. It is the lie that we've all been sold. It is the Christmas story, you know. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, some people say, "Well, what kind of person are you? Why are you preaching against democracy?" Well, because look around you. When the powers to be can do the things that they're doing, pandemics and pandemics and destroying your they give you a construct called capitalism, and then they tear it down from under you to make sure that you can't reach the goal that they set. They set the goal. They set the rules and the terms of engagement, and then they turn around and they change the rules in mid-flight, and you're not scrambling to figure out, whoa, whoa, whoa. And they do this stuff all the time. This is democracy. Even the
Well,
people that we claim that we elect, you have to question whether or not we elected them or were they selected and then we were fooled into believing that we had a say in them being there. These are the things I think that we have to question. Some people may not like it. Some people might consider me a heretic or something. Or
no,
something.
I think you're onto something because certainly in the U.S. system, one of the political scientists, I think his name is Michael Parenti, talked about democracy for the few. You know, when we look at how the president is elected in the U.S. and they have the electoral college, it shows you that
After you cast your vote, right? You gone through a year of listening to these bunch of bandits lying out to the public, cutting each other up and down, and you gone all hours and stand up and you fighting for your rights. I have the right to vote. Only then it goes to something called the electoral college that can say, well, your vote didn't mean nothing because we decided that guy over there is going to be the president. What a sham! It is an absolute sham.
so
There's
you
no
know
democracy there. There's no, well, there's democracy, but there's certainly no sovereignty. There's certainly no no recognition of persons innate rights that were given them by God, Most High God. So it's a joke. It's a joke. We should do a whole show on that one, dog.
yeah, I mean,
We could
it'll be
possibly get
hard.
into that one for
That will
sure.
be hard. That will be hard because that comes up very often in discussions about the American system. You know how it works versus, let's say, uh, the British system, of the monarchy, and and people forget that when you talk about the British and the U.S., you talk about mother and child. They were colonies too, right?
Yeah.
So if we look at the Australian system, if you look at other systems and so on, to what extent are they a true reflection of what is quote unquote democracy? And we can have lots of discussions about these things because lots of people are disenfranchised. If we just stay with the US alone, I mean, ooh, that's a topic by itself. Because you have African Americans, you have other people who are disenfranchised who feel that they're not getting a vote. We have issues where you're stopping people at the border. I could be detained by because of my color. So many things. How democratic is that? So yeah, we could really have some serious discussions about that because again, practices in one place does not necessarily mean that that can easily transfer to another place because context is everything. The U.S. context and Caribbean context chalk and cheese.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
um, if you juxtapose that with what happens in Canada, I mean, your experience in terms of what you lived that brought you to this point in terms of again democracy is going to be very very different from what you see next door across the board in the U.S. or what you've seen in the Caribbean space for that matter. So yeah, those are issues which very very different, very very different, and the theory says one thing, but the practice, oh my goodness, very very different. And
Very different realities. And then we go along with this. The masses, they don't critically analyze information. Case in point, look at these constructs that we've come up with in recent times. We can look at say, I don't want to call their names, but some of these social media companies where you
right,
post information. You
right.
post information on these social media companies, and what happens? Half the time, the stuff is not even verified. Nobody stops to think. I can put something up there as long as somebody decided it sounds good enough to them. They become the judge and the jury, and then they decide, okay, let me post this to my friends or post it on my page or whatever. And the next thing you know, now that's firing around the world. And enough people will pick it up, enough people will pass it, send it out, and very few people check that stuff. Eventually, somebody may hit and say, listen, this is a bunch of bunk. But, by the time that's how it's already been sent out, you
It's
can't
going
take it back.
viral.
The cat is
Yeah,
belled, you
yeah,
know?
it's
The
going
cat is
viral.
belled. I
Yeah,
had that case. I had a case of that just 2 days ago on one of my chats. Someone whom I respect tremendously, and I've done it too. I posted stuff that I found out later was erroneous, and but a friend of mine posted something a couple of days ago, and as it turns out, it was far from the truth,
right.
and a lot of people came slapped back, just had a lot of I felt sorry for him because he's not a bad guy. He's actually quite a well-intended person, and had no probably known that it sounded good to him whenever somebody probably sent it to him,
Okay.
but without checking, he then sent it out, and other people that might have known better or different started firing back at him, but it was already gone because I saw it before they started firing back at him as well. And
Right.
that is unfortunate because, I mean, I've had times when I've posted things that sounded to my liking. I want to just put it up there. And people will write me, people I respect, and they say, hey, you better check your material.
You better stop that.
Stop that. You better. You see, we're into sensationalism. We
Yeah,
like
yeah.
we like I remember when I was a kid there was some what the hell was the name of that newspaper now, but there was a paper in the States that used to publish all kinds of uh all kinds of salacious
Sensational.
information
Right,
about
right.
celebrities and stuff like that. I can't remember the name of the paper now. It doesn't really matter to me, but I remember I was about 12 when that came out, and 12 or 13 years old. And I used to love to see that thing because it had a lot of good, juicy gossip in it.
Right,
And
right.
eventually, um, it went away and became television reality. I remember the guy who was the editor of that, and I do remember the name of the journal, but I'm not going to call it.
Right, right.
Um, I remember him used to be on Fox Television, and he was the first of his type of journalist that I ever saw because truth of the matter is he made a fortune telling a whole bunch of lies to people and reconstructed what we call reality. And then
Reality
they call it
TV.
reality TV. Reality TV. What
Yeah,
a joke. But what
yeah.
is interesting about all of this is that there's nothing reality about it. It is somebody's business that you are digging yourself in and making opinions about, and then
Yeah.
expecting the mass, and people paid millions of dollars. This man made hundreds of millions of dollars annually,
Of course.
working for this television station, now doing it in live form like how we are now. I mean, if we ever chose to do sensational, we get 10 million people watching the show.
Of course, because people like, as you said, people like salacious news and sensationalism and emotionalism and all that kind of stuff. They love it. So, they think that, reality TV, the people who deal with reality TV is like, I mean, they live for it. They don't deal with anything else. And if
Yeah.
you told them that, have you ever watched something like, I saw not too long ago, maybe a week ago or so, um, court, well, could you call it small? I don't want to say small claims, but let's imagine something like small claims. So people are in there talking about paternity suits, and is this your baby mama, and is this your child father, and that kind of stuff. And I mean, that is sensationalism.
Very much. I mean,
And I
we've seen them
look at
all.
the
We've
judge,
seen
and the
them
judge
all.
was there saying, she said, I don't know how you people do this, and me, and I'm saying, and I said, can you imagine sitting down there and watching this whole day, whole night? People just coming in and challenging, and you did this to me and you did that to me, and it's like, whoa, and that's their world,
Yeah.
and they
We
want
had
nothing.
we had we had my cousin Jerry who had a show there, which was Animal Farm. I used to, I was a teenager, but I used to watch some of Jerry, and Jerry was a very intelligent man. Jerry was the youngest mayor ever elected in the United States. Did you know that?
Hmm.
Youngest mayor. He holds the record of being the youngest mayor. That's how intelligent he was but he took that and he realized he could make money by twisting. I watched his interview when he did his bio, his I guess his story. And he says,
Hmm.
"Listen, I could have stayed on the straight and narrow and just you just try to educate people." But he said people weren't interested in that. He said, "I recognized I could make money. I could make money by being sensational. Um, by, by, and he said, give them the flavor of the day, and the
And they
rest is
happy, they
yeah."
happy.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, and I sat. I mean, he's a very intelligent man. Then the other one came on. To a ponderance of 99%, you are the father.
I
I
mean,
mean,
I watched that for a couple of minutes, and I said, whoa, I could not stay here and watch this all day, all night. No. No, but there are people who are. I mean, they'll probably go and get their popcorn and their drinks and sit down and say, "Okay, let's. This is it. It's happening now." And it's like, "Whoa! Did she do that? Did he say that?" And it's like,
you
"Whoa! This
know,
is this is real life to them." You know?
no, no, no. What used to bother me, Doc, is that you imagine that you're in your home in Ohio somewhere, and somebody gonna send you a ticket to come all the way out to Hollywood to be on a show or wherever the hell they televise those things from, and you don't know what it's about, supposedly. And you're gonna come on there, when you get on there, some young lady that you may have had a tryst with some time ago tell you, "This is your baby, look at it face, look at it, no, look at it." And then they carry on and tell each other's business all, "Oh, she slept with 20 men that night before me," and da, da, da. What an idiot. I used to think to myself, these people, I mean, I read the book Animal Farm. I read
Oh
Animal
yeah,
Farm when
classic,
I was in
classic.
school. Yeah. I read Animal Farm, and to me, um, that's all I could think of when I watched these
Yeah.
episodes of I hate to call anyone an animal because it's not a nice thing to do. But can you imagine that you go on there? I see guys don't tell people, oh, he got a secret crush on this guy and all this stuff. Societal decay. We were in a
Correct.
tailspin now for more than 20 years. We've been in this damn tailspin. And the people that we elect call themselves Democrats or whatever, you know. the democratic system, has failed. The churches have failed. Social society has failed. We are in a decline. We're in a society of absolute decline. And that leads to our conversation of the day. You
Correct.
know, when a people, I mean, they did it was in Africa, the council of the, what is it?
Co- Nicaea?
German, I was thinking the council of Nices, but that's not what I'm thinking of. The
Oh, you,
German,
oh, you're talking about the other one, Berlin, the Berlin Conference.
The Berlin conference, where they, some men got together under somebody called King Leopold. And
Hmm. Belgium.
King, right? Some guy fella called King Leopold and decided he's going to cut up somebody's country, slice and dice somebody's country. And to this day, how many years later, we still suffering the consequences. Any
Yeah.
leader who stands up in Africa and decides to speak truth to lies becomes persona non grata and is dead within less than a year. We can do Thomas Sankara, 35-year-old man who came to the end of his life. He didn't hurt anyone. He didn't hit anyone. He didn't even, he just said, listen, I want my sovereignty. I want my freedom.
Hmm.
And somebody decided that they were above the law to the extent that they could not only invade your space, but they could put you in jail at will. They can abuse you, beat you, whatever the case may be. And then still, when that doesn't stop you, they cause your life to cease. These are the kinds of happenings that have been going on now for thousands of years. I was going to say hundreds, but the truth of the matter is,
Thousands.
even
Yeah, you're correct. Yeah.
thousands of years.
Thousands of years. Yeah.
And we sit back and we laugh and we say democracy, democracy, democracy. Well, I have yet for anyone to really tell me. And I remember from my second show I did on the other platform, the question I asked was, what is your definition of democracy? You
Very
see,
good question.
I have come to learn, Doc, that what we're taught and what is can be two very different
Oh
things.
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, even if we take it to its logical conclusion, so we talk about demos coming from the city, the Greek city state, and so on and so forth. And we talk about these great guys, the Plato and Socrates and Aristotle and all these different things. But that is, again, as you said, based on the on the lies that everything started with Greece and Rome. It did not, you know. So if you start with those false premises, chances are you will end up with the wrong things because in these guys, same Plato and Aristotle and Socrates and so on, they went down to Africa to learn. They went down to Egypt,
Egypt.
right? So they
Oh,
were looking
there's a book I read several years ago, more than 30 years ago, The Stolen Treasures
hmm
of Egypt.
hmm
And it talks about how they came and they stole all of the education they learned and they stole, went back to
correct,
Greece with all
correct.
of that education. And they were given credit for the discovery theory, much like our friend Christopher Colombo, or whatever his
Columbus,
name
yeah,
was,
Columbus, yeah,
right?
yeah.
It wasn't Columbus, Colombo. Check the history books. You'll see his last name was not Columbus. That's another missing. They tell us about some man named Christopher. It was Cristobal Colombo or something like that. That's his actual name.
Because well, if you
Imagine.
put it in Spanish, it's Cristobal Colon.
Okay, maybe that's what
Yeah.
I was reading. But
hmm
the point is, um, all right. So how do we know when we translate the English now? Is this Christopher Columbus guy? He might be
Exactly.
some fictitious
Exactly.
bastard that they're trying
And,
to hide behind or something, you know.
and these are the
Like,
issues
come
too.
on. AKA Christopher Columbus, the theory of discovery. The man went and took people land and said, "Oh, I discovered that. I discovered this." You discovered shit. You ain't even open your eyes yet. But history says he discovered it, and
These are
then
the fallacies.
yeah.
Welcome, Sister
What's up,
Ara. Welcome,
Kiara?
welcome,
How are
welcome.
you?
Thank you. Pleasant day to you both.
You look as though you just came out of the Isle of Helen.
Wow.
Straight out of Africa, a
Straight out
queen,
of yeah.
African queen. It is
Yes,
good to
yes,
see you.
Gratitude.
definitely, definitely.
It's great to see you both
We've been
as
missing
well and to
your
listen to you.
presence here on NTech Radio, NTech Live. This is
Mm,
actually the very first show that we're actually going to do today. So I invited you. I think VP Turney might be joining us as well. He did say he would, but I haven't seen
good.
him yet. And our
Excellent.
guests are due to come into the studio in another 20 minutes. But in the
Mm,
meantime, the doc and I was here just having a conversation
mm,
about these various theories that we've been taught over the years. One is the theory of discovery, which I find interesting because I saw a video some time ago. I think it was last year sometime. It was last year where this chap went to London, England. He was a South American dude. I can't remember which country he was from now, Brazil or one
mm.
of those places like that. And Doc, he went to London, England, and he wanted to prove that the theory of discovery was nothing more than a bunch of bunk. And so he went walking somewhere and he saw this, I think it was a Rolls Royce or a Bentley's or something. It was sitting there idling. I don't know if it was if this was staged or not, but there's this car sitting there idling. There's nobody in the car. And he decided, okay, open the door. I know I wouldn't have done it, but he did. Open the door. He sat in the driver's seat. He didn't drive away or nothing. He just sat there. And later on, somebody came and tapped the window and said, "Excuse me, what are you doing in there?" He said, "Oh, I discovered this. I discovered this."
I
And and they ended up
like
calling
that.
the
Oh my
police. They ended up calling
goodness.
the police, right? The police, the man. I saw the video. I should. I don't know if I still say. I had. I'm sure I have it saved. And he says to the policeman, um, "This man stole my car." The man says, "No, I did not steal the car. I discovered this car. This is my car. I discovered this car." And he forced the issue all the way to the end. Eventually, it was resolved amicably, and he got out the people car and let them have it. But he forced the issue, and that's what really also gave me some awakening because to think that someone can walk in your door, Doc, of your house right now. Let's say someone, me. I come to your house. I say, come knock. I ain't even knocking. I'm just gonna come open the damn door, walk in, sit down, put myself feet up, turn on the TV, and say, "Oh, just discovered this wonderful place, folks." And you put
You
on
won't believe
your
it.
little tube like this here, right? And you broadcast it back. Oh, look at the wonderful surroundings I have. I just discovered this. This is exactly the bullshit that we've been fed for so very long. We've been fed this crap. And then, as I was saying, Africa, Leopold decided, well, I'm savages. Let me cut it up.
Huh.
54 little countries, or 55. Some people say 54, some say 55. I believe if you include Morocco, it's 55, but they try to leave them aside and say,
It's
oh,
55 now with
they're not
the
Africa,
South Sudan.
right?
South
Yeah,
Sudan was the last African state, so they divided Sudan into Sudan and South Sudan. It
right.
became
And,
55.
and, but when you look at it realistically, right? Somebody, without the permission of those people, invaded their sovereignty and decided for them what their lives were supposed to look like. And they have continued to this day. Nobody, how come there hasn't convened yet a summit of Chicago or a summit of Barbados or a summit of Trinidad to say, okay, so Leopold said Africa is divided. So we say we have a decree that's canceled. We can call virtual reality shows and we can say, without a preponderance of doubt, the evidence say that you are 99% the father of that child, well, then we should be able to stand up and say, look, without a preponderance of the evidence, 100%. France does not own any country in Africa. Spain, Portugal, Britain, the United States or any of them. Get the hell out. We should be able to say, you people that call yourselves Jews, which is not true, Zionists, get out of the people land, leave the people alone. I'm leading into our presentation. The point of it is, why are we practicing this hypocrisy? Why are we practicing the art of hypocrisy? Where we're saying one thing, we're supposed to be educated people. We go to school quite often at the expense of the state in most places. And then we come out with our brains hung upside down and we tell people we're educated people. Where the hell's the common sense in all of this? When did we go to sleep and forgot to turn our brains back on? Because we're just walking zombies. Nobody can walk in my house. Not even tell me move aside. Give me two slaps upside my head and go in my fridge, take what they want, sit down, watch TV, use the phone, use the bathroom, whatever, and tell me when you finish, clean up this hair behind me. But that's exactly what we had. That's what we have. Why is nobody able to articulate that and be able to say, well, this is wrong?
Well, that's what has been missing, you know. And so that, as you said, that leads us right into our topic. But as you spoke about Africa and France and so on, and that's why Dr. Arikana resonated with me so much, because to have the audacity to stand there and call them out, I said, fantastic, long overdue. And fearlessness, speaking truth to lies, is not easily done because everybody's living in fear.
You're right, Doc. That's the key word right there.
It's fear.
Fear.
Yeah.
And we are told about that from the beginning of time. Fear and faith cannot coexist. So we will never find our true place as long as we are operating in a sphere of fear.
Correct.
We will never find our true being because the fear, right? The fear will lead us to do all manner of things, none of which is in our best interest.
Correct.
For survival, maybe for the sake of eating a piece of bread today, maybe, whatever. And then we go and we compromise ourselves into some less than honorable situation. And then what? You can't take it back, Once the deed is done, it's done. The cat is belled. It's finished. And
Correct.
the damage that is done to the human, to the spirit. Let me take that word human out because I'm not a human, so I want to be very clear about that. These people, when they talk about black people are 3/5 of a human, but they were right. Why are we fighting something that's the truth? See, that's the problem. We fight the truth and we accept the lies. Black people are 3/5. Some of them are. I'm not. Some of them are 3/5 of a human being because they accept to be humans. Maybe they went and, as God told them, don't mix, don't get involved with none of this, interracial bullshit. And they go and they get involved with it, and then the children, offsprings now are 3/5 of a human because then people are human. You didn't get it. Most people don't get it. There's no black man born that was a human yet. There's a Zakar, the original man. Go read it. It was Zakar.
Well, you see, this is part of the challenge that we have. We have not been, people who sought the truth. So we've been living in a world of lies and deceit and false doctrines that have governed our lives for so long that we believe it is the truth. And then the fear that is put in there, cast your minds back. The first years, Michelle said it on Sunday, and I was so sorry I had to leave that conversation because when Michelle said these things, I said, Aha, those three pillars. The
Yeah.
chronological age. Let's go back right there. 0 to 7 is over.
Yep.
It's
That's
over.
it. You know, the
It's over.
Catholic Church says that. You know, that's McDonald's operating principle, right? Give me the children till they're 7 and they own them for the rest of their lives. But the Catholic Church came up with that. It was the first one that came up with that.
Yeah, yeah.
Give us your children till they're 7 and we own them. Whatever we've told them for the first 7 years of their life, they're going to believe that till the day
Of
they die.
course.
And they'll fight to
You
death.
look at it.
How
I
many?
mean,
I saw Joshua Momponga prove something the other day when he said in front of a congregation, a church congregation, he started preaching to them. You think that this white man called Jesus went and died for you? If he died for you, first of all, he said, who was the person on the right and who was the person on the left? He said, China and America. Then then he turned around and he says he says he says um, that he turned around and he said, "We the black man is still on the cross. The black man is still on the cross, huh? The black man is still on the cross to this day, right? He hasn't
and
been taken down. He's still up there because everywhere you turn, a black person is still prosecuted
crucified
continuously.
daily. Yeah, and it's correct because you look at it, and if you doubt it, you take. I mean, you've seen it. You've seen some pictures of. Um, it could be so ridiculous as a lion protecting something that he would normally eat because they grew up together. A duck will follow you and think you are its mother if you were have established that relationship so early. A dog and a cat, if they put together very early, they will establish that relationship. It's like a mother and a baby, inseparable because she's hearing you from the womb. She's already hearing your voice and learning who is mama. Later on, I will know who's dada, but I'll know who's mama first. And that's why I said the mother's role is the most important role because you are bringing this being, that voice, you know. So, as a youngster, and your mother and your father giving you those rules and the golden rules, what is right from what is wrong, that's it. That's your template. That will always be in your DNA. You'll always hear your mother's voice or your father's voice saying, listen, you know you're not supposed to do that. Don't do it. Don't do it. You may override that voice and you may go and do it, but that voice will always ring in your ear. You know you're doing the wrong thing. And you can test it. You can test it. Brother Philip,
Yes.
the Canadians, when they dug up all those bodies,
Uh-huh.
where they were forcing the indigenous people to become Christians, wrenched from their families. I know you're talking about the Africans now. I just showing you another side now. Lest you think that is only one side, they did it to everybody, right? And so those indigenous peoples in Canada had their children wrenched from them to send them to some missionary schools. Who asked you whether I wanted to be a missionary or I want to go to a missionary school? Did you ask me anything? No, you did not. Who said I want to be, quote unquote, in a Christian school? What's wrong with what I had? So therefore, you have to ask that question. What is the purpose of you taking me from here to transport me somewhere else to come up under your system, your rules, and so on? There was a reason. And it comes back to what Brother Philip was asking. The so the common sense was knocked out by quote unquote education, which turns out to be a miseducation. education to suit their purposes. But our education, I remember I asked my stepdad sometime when I was pretty small. I said, Dad, you know something? How do you know in our Caribbean setting, when do you know you have become a man? When do you know when you have become a man? What is the yardstick? I said I will go to another place and I'll show you how you become a man. There's an initiation ceremony when you're 13 or so, which says you have to do this and you have to do that and you have to do that to prove that you have now become a man. So you are introduced into manhood and womanhood. So you become fruitful members of this society. You have roles and so on. To this day, if you were to go to Nigeria in the villages and so on, there's certain rules. Big brother, big sister, auntie, uncle. When you leave and you go to the city, you could do all kinds of things, you know. But when you go back to that village, those rules stand. I had my friends when I was at Pace University, they were going to Long Island University, and I always remember those conversations. Here, you have so much freedom, quote unquote. You can do as you want. You feel you're a big man, you're a big woman. When you get back there, it's uncle and auntie, you know, and elders, you know. So those principles that govern our lives back there in the villages very much influence how we think and how we behave and so on. And that's what Michelle was referring to. That's where I was going to jump into that conversation with Michelle on Sunday and say, yes, Michelle, spot on. Because we have lost that. In the Caribbean too, we had great respect for our elders, auntie, uncle. You never call Ara, you crazy? Cousin Ara, Auntie Ara, and so on and so forth, because age range and so on. You know, our children watch somebody and say, um, Sheila, who you calling Sheila? Is Sheila your friend? Is she your age? She has to be Miss Sheila, or whatever other designation we can use. So once you've lost that, then it's very hard to recapture.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very hard to recapture. You know, and then of course the what we call the family structure.
Oh.
You know, that is gone too. You know, where we had um, support of your grandmothers and your grandfathers. Um, so that family structure now is so different. Children literally raising themselves. There's no parental guidance and support because both parents are working. I mean, when I was, all of us were born at home. Nobody ever saw a hospital yet. You go and you call the midwife come. Michelle is doing this now. I was going to ask her the question: how many midwives do we have?
Oh.
What is midwifery like today? You know, how many homes do you all visit? What are you all doing these days? The midwife was like, I mean, the midwife back in the day was the kind of doctor, and she did everything: deliver the babies, make sure anything is sick, and so on, right? So we kind of discarded all of that for the modern, whatever modern means, but we lost our souls, we lost our spirits, as Philip was saying, in that process. So we have become dehuman. You have been dehumanized in that process. You see, and those are the things that we have not really fully understood because we've become insensitive to these things. It's become the norm. So you talk about these things, it's like, what is Ara talking about? Why is Ara getting on like that? Doesn't Ara know that this is the modern time? This is this time? you know.
Well, you see, Dr. Savarol, I listen to you, and it's lovely hearing what you're saying and what Lord Philip is saying, and it's like we fail to admit certain
Richie.
we fail to admit certain failings, yes, and we fail to admit certain glaring, very glaring, it's so right in our faces. We are no longer in our own image. We are made in the image of those persons who came, saw, and conquered. Yes,
Absolutely correct.
we are. And
Absolutely
until
correct.
we admit that basic truth, and it is a truth, we are made in their image. We are fashioned behind them. That's who we, and we aspire to be like them. We aspire to acquire what they have acquired, the way they've acquired it. Yeah. From cradle to grave.
Correct.
That's
Correct.
it. And
Yeah.
and and that's our sad reality. That's
Yeah.
our sad reality. I mean, I came in when you were speaking of Cristobal Colon. Yeah. And
Mhm.
for many years, the main square in the heart of Castries was Columbus Square.
And every city you go into, there's a Columbus Circle, a
Every city you
Columbus
go
this,
to,
a Columbus
there's a
that.
Columbus Square next to the cathedral, the Roman Catholic cathedral.
Yeah.
And that's your language.
For example,
Oh,
when this whole campaign started with Black Lives Matter, and
I want to cry.
they were looking at all the symbols that needed to be torn down, and they went to um, cities in the U.S. and said, let's get down all these things that speak to um, the southern icons, tearing down some flags and some buildings and some statues and so on. And they started doing similar things in Europe, in Liverpool and so on, those places which fueled this whole thing about slavery and how they made all this money from us and so on. Um, we recognize how powerful this thing is called self hate.
Hmm.
Self hate. We had a group, Caribbean Association, Caribbean, the Caribbean African Association of Barbados, CAAB. We used to have our meetings on Sundays. And one Sunday we dedicated that evening to talking about self hate
Hmm.
and the images. And they're all around us, as you said.
Hmm.
Black and chicken, you're just like a worthless father, this and that, and all these things that we perpetuate
Hmm.
instead of addressing it, like you said, and putting it away, we continue to perpetuate it to this day,
Hmm.
right? So it's not going anywhere. Instead
Hmm.
of going, we are reliving, reinforcing. We're going like this all the time because there are two types of reinforcement. We can have positive reinforcement, where we change the images and we come to the real ones that we want, or we can
Hmm.
have negative reinforcement, where we reinforce the negative and we keep it, we perpetuate it. And so that's what we do. So you ask someone, about the ancestral roots and so on. They say, "Oh, well, I'm from Saint Lucia." You know,
Hmm.
okay, I'm fine. I have no problem with that. Um, um, so all the people in Saint Lucia, where did they come from?
Hmm.
And if you want to go back and back and back and back and back, take me all back. Take me as far back as you can. And where's the origin?
Hmm.
But as you said, nobody wants to deal with that. Nobody wants to
No,
face that.
no.
They just want to talk about now as though they just landed from the moon. And I said, no, you didn't just land from the moon.
Hmm.
You came from somewhere, just as the others came from somewhere. And don't you feel strange that everybody can say, trace their roots back? and you can't, don't you feel
Hmm.
easy about that?
Oh.
Don't you feel lost about that? Doesn't that touch you? Doesn't that hurt you?
Mm.
I said, well, you may be very strange in that regard, but I feel it.
Absolutely. Deeply.
Yeah, I
Mm.
feel. And when I hear these stories, it's like, okay, I want to know more. I mean, what happened?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This not go this way or that way? Why? You see? And we've lost the sense of inquiry and the pursuit of knowledge. And we just,
Curiosity.
yeah, we've lost that. So we just want
Mm.
to be um, um, desensitized and told that everything is okay and you don't have to worry about the past and just live in the now. And I'm saying, really? You serious? You really
Empty.
thought of that? It's so sad.
Mm. We've become empty in that
Yes.
image, like I said, empty.
Yeah.
And it's painful to watch. It's painful to listen to persons who just go along like they're called sheeple. Yeah, sheeple.
Hmm.
And earlier you said it depends on fear, but it depends on fear and also ignorance, I'd like to add.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Of
There's
course.
this all pervading, deep, dark ignorance that we seem not to want to dispel, we seem not to want to get out of and come into the light of knowledge, you
There
know.
we go.
And not just knowledge for knowing sake, because I know this. Okay, you know this. Now what are you doing about what you know?
Ah, that's the follow-up question.
Yeah.
So therefore, we have to go back and ask the question: what's the purpose of knowledge? See, so
Mm,
we acquire things without understanding what is the purpose.
mm,
But if you understand what's purpose, then it's like, whoa, it has different meanings now because those guys who came and saw and conquered, they
mm,
came and they saw and they said, whoa, look at all these things around here. That's Philip gave me a good example.
mhm.
I'm going to sit and um, I just discovered this, right?
Yeah.
Right. And therefore now I claim to own it, right? And so when you look at that purpose driven way of thinking, you understand, whoa, you see where these people are going. You see where these people are going. I mean, in my readings, I came across where Chief Sitting Bull,
Mm,
the chief of the Sioux Nation in the US, one of the biggest indigenous native peoples, and he sat and he looked in the plains and he said, for as far as my eye could see, I'm looking at my people and I'm saying, we are going. We are done. We are done. We are done. Because these people that we're dealing with here have no boundaries. None. None. So I could sit here and I would look and I would see buffalo from here till the horizon. And I know how we live it, how our people live. We get enough food. We get enough to make our moccasins, to make our tipis, to make our bows and arrows, and to feed our people and so on. We know that we are here now. In the next 3 months, we move from here and we go somewhere else so that here could revitalize itself. Grass can give rebirth, renewal, and we go
mm,
to some other place. These guys come and they say, listen, we want everything now, today. They know tomorrow, they know next week, they know next month, next year. No.
mm.
So where are we going? And we going to hell?
Nowhere fast.
Precisely. And he sat down, he watched, and he says, oh my goodness, my people, we're in big danger. We're in big, big danger. You know, Fast forward 2024, we're in TNT, or we're anywhere in the Caribbean. Here comes our Chinese trawlers, and they're trawling for fish. What do? They take up everything, even a little something that look like a little speck, get caught up in the trawler. So there's no regeneration and no rebirth, and everything gone now today. So what is left for tomorrow now? What are you going to eat tomorrow, or next month, or next year?
Hmm.
And these are the things we're not looking at, because the capitalist ethic is to become filthy, stinking rich
Hmm.
at everybody's expense. We don't care. And that is unsustainable, you see. And this is where we struggle, because um, nothing really matters except the dollars.
The profit.
But
Yeah,
we're talking that is the playbook of the capitalists, and we know who the capitalists are.
correct.
And let us not be misguided here.
Hmm.
They have written, that's their script,
Yeah.
and the rest of us are supposed to play by that script. But you see, the problem is we don't have the ability to change the rules. They change the rules as they feel like, and then we have to comply or fit in order to be considered acceptable. Money laundering is something that we know has been done by the capital all this time, but they'll come and tell these little poor countries, if you don't have disclosure, FATCA and KYC and all this bullshit, that somehow you are a rogue country, and you have you're put on some blacklist. Oh,
Green
damn
list, blue list, white
it!
list, all kinds of things, man.
Listen, they don't want to start me today.
I know they don't want to get you started. It's like when I teach my classes, I say, look, we all don't get me started, you know. Just Tuesday, for example, I was sharing with them FTX, the latest scandal in terms of cryptocurrencies and so on. The guy from the Bahamas, young white guy, probably about 32, 33. They just gave him about 20 years in jail, um, because they said it was, he knew what he was doing and it's the biggest scam and so on and so forth. Um, so to Philip's point about the money laundering and all these different things, I mean, they know what's going on. You could be, I mean, they love to point to, the biggest scammers are Nigerians and so on. I said, really? Nigerians can't scam like you guys, man. Come on. Can't. You know? I remember that, I don't know if you ever saw that interview with Farrakhan and Mike Wallace. And Mike Wallace was saying, man, Nigeria is the most corrupt country. And Farrakhan said, Mr. Wallace,
Hang a minute. Yes.
you saw that one?
Did, yes, I
Oh,
did.
I love it. I love it. He stopped him
That's
in
so.
his tracks. He said, I cannot sit here and have that discussion with you when you and I know we live in the most corrupt country in history. What are you talking about? What is Nigeria? What Nigeria are you talking about? I
But
said,
you done stole the people's goods. You came in, you took their land, you took their oil, you took their gas, you took their gold, they took everything. And then you turn around, you took even all the artifacts, took them to wherever you wanted to
yeah,
take them, put them in museums, and charge people a price to come and see them. And then you're going to turn around and tell the Nigerian that's struggling to eat two loaf of bread that he's a con artist, that he's a crook, that
you
he's
know,
this. You created him.
of course,
Shut up and get on with life, you little
exactly.
bastard.
And that's the whole idea. So nobody is willing to speak truth to lies. And that's why we are where we are. So when Dr. Arikana came out and said, look, boom, and hit you in your face with it, I said, yeah, it's time. It is time. That's the only way you're going to change it. It has to be, nothing changes unless there's confrontation. You must confront. When two things collide, something goes up, something goes down, something new is created. If there's no collision, nothing ain't changing. You see? And this is how we get change. There must be confrontation, right? There must be that disruption of the status quo to get something new. And that's where we are. That's where we are. Um, the whole end of apartheid confrontation. You have to fight. If you don't fight, talking and praying without action, no, it's not going to happen. You must have some action. You must have some action, and therefore, this is where we are. We have to act. We have to engage. We have to be doing things differently to get the kind of results that we're looking for, right? And that's where we are. That's the process we're engaged in. So for us, because of fear, because of self-hate, because of apathy, because of um, chasing this image which is not you, which is not yours. You spend all your waking moments and energies and thoughts just chasing this image, trying to be what you cannot be, will never be. You need to stop. You see, but it's so ingrained in your psyche that you deny it. You're correct. They deny.
Mm-hmm.
They're in denial. You see, and that's where we're struggling. I see Brother Harlem is coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
Brother,
so we have
Brother
some
Hallam
challenges.
has joined us.
Yes,
Uh,
I
we're
see him
now
there.
16 minutes in, but I'll add Brother Hallam to the conversation, and then we'll start to bring his people in. So, all
Okay,
right,
good.
if you're gonna go, or if you're gonna stay, stay.
Yes,
But
I'll bid my farewell. Yes,
yeah, call me
and
after.
I'll
Yeah,
listen. I'll listen in.
yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank
Have a
okay.
you.
good
Thank
rest
you.
of it.
Pleasure.
Have a good one.
Shalom.
Thank you.
Ciao. Bye
Shalom.
bye.
Brother Hallam, you are here. You are here live. You know this is a significant day, right? I never told you this, but this is actually the first broadcast on this platform. It's not our first broadcast, but on this platform that you're on, this is the very first.
Brand new.
How fitting! This is
Continue,
this is our
continue,
new
brother.
this is our newest platform, and we of all days, who starts the Palestine? We do a piece on Palestine. This is memorable. I like this. This is God. This is God ordained. No matter how you look at it, no matter how you are the first broadcast ever on this particular platform that you're on. So I know you didn't get the website link, but I will endeavor to send. I forgot to send that to you, but I couldn't really do anything about it now. But they'll still be able to see us on Facebook, YouTube, Carib Social, and some of the other platforms out there that we stream to. Um, but to get to our platform itself, I would have to have sent you that link before I went into the system. Anyway, welcome, Brother Hannum. It's good to see you again. Good to see you, man. And Brother
Several
Severon, it's
times.
good to see you,
Welcome,
boss.
welcome, welcome, Brother Hallam.
You can set up for us. I had told you that I'm gonna probably have to depart you about 10:30 at the latest. I could push it probably till 10:30, but I have a very important appointment in town that I have to attend today for 11. So let us get right into this thing, and
What?
I'm gonna let you and Dr. Several take it from here, and I will just chip in when I have to. Go
Before,
ahead.
yeah, before you go,
No, I'm not
Ambassador.
leaving yet.
Oh
I'm
no.
not leaving yet. I'm gonna be here, but I'm just saying. But go on, talk to me.
Yes. The ambassador, Palestinian ambassador, she was hospitalized with something in her knee
Oh,
last night. So I think
ouch.
they gotta take out some stuff from her knee or something like that.
Oh
Okay.
man.
So
Which country
this
is she
morning,
in, Harlem?
she's
Uh,
in Texas.
Oh, she's in Texas. Okay, yeah. That's why the time difference. Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
So she said since 2 o'clock this morning she was in the hospital,
Oh,
and
Oh,
I think it's something a minor surgery she have to go through with her knee or something like that this morning. So she
yeah.
had
We
planned
have
to be on.
a lot
She
of
had
people
planned to be
falling
on.
down. One of our brothers, Trevor, has had a stroke. He's only 59, 60 years old at the most. About two other people I know have had strokes in the last 2 weeks. Amazing. It's just happening all around us, you know.
So we have Some of his sister, one of his sister from the UK, she
Uh-huh.
also she's also versed with the Palestinian issue, and also I think she's studying journalism in the UK.
Yeah.
And we have some other guests would come on. The other
Man,
is
we'll do the
very
best with what we have. This is literally the first broadcast on here. So in a way, it didn't wasn't planned that way originally, but that's how it turned out. So we're gonna make the best of it. I actually like it better because it's actually a better quality of programming than the old one. But there's still things I'm learning about it as well. So let's give it the best we can. There are people logged on for sure. There were people logged on. By the time I log on this morning, there are already people. The thing about this show, Hallam, and I'm going to say this without trying to sound arrogant, but we built up quite a following, even on the other platform that we were on before. And what has happened? People just going looking for us because they just say, "Well, geez, what happened to the Global Independence Square?" By the time I did a test last night, and I had 60 something people logged on while I was testing the thing last night, doc. 61 people log on just to see, and it wasn't a program. All it was I was just running to make sure everything was be ready for this morning, and 61 people waiting there for something to be said. And I just found that a little bit hilarious, but it's good. I have no knocking about that. I don't know how many are on there now. It's going to take me a few days to figure out the if we've gotten back most of our people. We should though, because all we did was change the platform. We didn't change the links and stuff. So we should have most of the people back in there and get them used to viewing us again
Sunday.
starting to next week. Yeah, I see
Our brother,
Nazim here, but I think Nazim's I think is not hooked in properly. I've seen his name, but I'm not seeing his emoji. So therefore, I don't know if he's fully engrossed. I see Hadia
yes,
Mohammed. Yeah. And I would ask any of you, all of you, just put your cameras on first before I bring you in. I don't want to open you to the screen. And if you're not prepared and you turn your camera on, it could be embarrassing. So I like you to put it on. I can see you. And Dr. Wayne, because he's a narrator, only the two of us can see you in the green room that you're in now. So if that tells me when you're in a position of readiness to go, if you can put your camera on. Thanks. Go ahead,
so
Alan.
yeah, so Dr. Wayne, you think that they actually sort you with the channel, or they're looking for the chancellor? See where he at.
Yeah, we'll be good, man. We'll be good. We'll be good. So Halim, I'll let you sort of set the context and the guests that you have lined up and so on, and we'll just get into it. You could sort of give a preface that
Nazim is telling me here that he can see me. I can see and hear you. Only need to be added, but I can't see him on my system. That's very unusual. But you know what? Like I said, it's the first on this platform. Anything can happen. Let's try it and see what happens. Let's see if Brother Nazim can come
Yes.
in because I know that he's not properly connected. He's not properly
Yeah,
connected.
probably have
because
to
it
go on
took
and come
took
back
you a
in.
little while.
Okay, now he's come. Now he's getting it. Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Very
great.
good. I'll add idea as well.
Okay,
Yes.
great. So,
Yeah.
Brother Halem, I'll let you do the sort of put the context, and then we'll get into it in terms of the guests that we have. Um, of course, we will make the apologies for our
Before
ambassador.
before I go on, just 1 second. Just
Sure.
1 second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So yes, this speech today, folks, will be one of our several broadcasts with regards to the Palestinian plight, and we have in the past done a few segments on the genocide that is going on in Gaza. And today we have some of our brothers and sisters from the Palestinian community who are here to speak truth to lies and stand in power together. So Halam Khan, who is my good friend, uh, has asked for this opportunity to bring the message to the world. And we will help to comply to provide such a vehicle. Hallam, take it away. You can introduce your people and let them come on, and you all can have your conversation. I will moderate from the back, and Dr. Wayne will moderate from the front. Go ahead.
Yes,
Yes.
welcome, Brother Alan.
So the best greetings to begin with to our viewers is the universal greetings of peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, meaning may the peace and blessing of the Almighty God be on everyone. This morning, I've decided since Tuesday I was trying to get on, to allow the persons that were not familiar with some of the news, what's happening in Palestine presently. And then with the two sides, the two faces of the United States also, where they're dropping some aid, food to the people, but they're giving more bombs to the Israeli. So they're calling and saying a ceasefire they wanted. But we saw what's been happening. If you give the Israelis, the Zionists actually, they give them more bombs to wipe out the Palestinians, how with a few crates of food would make them survive? And also we saw that what's been happening in Rafah today, whereas you have just recently, we have these humanitarian aid persons, 7 of them were killed. And that's just 7, and the whole world reacts. And every day we have hundreds of Palestinians being killed, their houses being bulldozed, and it goes on and on every single day. And the news channel, Al Jazeera, which give you an accurate figure, an accurate account on what's going on in Gaza. And not just Gaza, let's deal with Rafah today. And they've passed a law to ban any network, which we have here the truth and not their side. And we're seeing that also the United States, they are calling on them to stop the bombing. But I don't know if because that is a public view of them, just because of the election. But every single one of us know what's going on. Every single one of us know what's going on with the hypocrisy. And we have seen that anyone who tried to come to aid of the Palestinian people, and let us use the Houthis, the Yemenis, they're saying that the Houthis is claiming that, and the world see that, I would not harm any ships, or I would not attack any ship going through there. But also, the United States is responsible because they're the one who started to bomb all these areas, all these other countries, Yemen, Lebanon, Syria, and all of these countries. So they're picking the side, the Israeli side, the Zionist side. I don't want to go on much more further because I have some accounts on the amount of force being killed. 32,000, over 32,000 have been killed. That's just with the bombing. That's to leave all those persons who've been injured, and also they die from that injury. It's over 75,000. So you are dealing with over 100 and something thousand person And they are human beings. They are not animal, as the Israeli claim, but they are just human beings. And for over 75 years, we have seen what has been going on with them. But someone may ask a question, or people might ask a question, why did God allow this to happen? But God is the best of planners. For 75 years, they have killed and they have made the Palestinian people suffer. And we have seen that the world has really opened their eyes and see what has been happening to the Palestinian people today. When you're targeting the health workers, doctors, nurses, and so on, who have to take care of these persons, these injured persons, it shows you that also the attack on the hospital, that those persons who they are attacking is that they don't want, the Zionists don't want them to get any form of help. But according to the Geneva Convention also, the people fighting are not whether the wounded or the sick or prisoners of war. There's the provision to provide human and to protect them from murder or torture. And also they have to have protection also in the medical personnel facilities. And what we have seen that the Zionist regime, they are doing every single thing against that convention, the 1949 convention. So this here, what we are seeing with the ICJ and everything, they are blatantly saying, well, listen, we can do what we want because we have our partners. Never mind the United States, they're making statements. But if you're making a statement just recently, you're sending thousands of bombs to Israel. So I don't see why you're saying my words, you want a ceasefire, but yet you're equipping on one side. It should have been just as Ukraine and Russian war. At least supply the Palestinian them too, because they're fighting for their right, for their land. And they go on and on with grabbing these and stealing these Palestinian land. And I will come in with some other statistic, but I just want to open the floor to know what's going on in Palestine. And Dr. Wayne, I think you're the moderator, and so you could bring in the other. And I think Nazim is no.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, Brother Halim, thanks. I know we have Sister Hadia and we have Brother Nazim. I think somebody else is trying to come on, but I can't see who that is. But anyway, let's go with who we have here. And so I'll ask Hadia to comment based on where Halim left off. And for the record, we want to state that the ambassador was not able to join us because she had informed us medical condition to take care of this morning, so that has derailed her visit with us this morning. Nevertheless, we are here and we will add our voices to the discussion. So, Sister
Yes.
Hadia,
Before.
oh yes, Halim, go ahead.
Yes. Yes. So it's not just the cough or cold or flu she had. There's a minor surgery she had admitted in the hospital this morning, 2 o'clock. So she's in the hospital presently now. So she would have wished to be on the program, but unfortunately, because of our injury, She had to go in a minor surgery. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Hanamet. I thought we should share that because our viewers who may have been, expecting to hear from her and so on. So we need to say that up front. Sister Hadia, would you care to come in now and comment on what is happening from your perspective, from what you've heard? Um, what are your views and concerns?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. Good day and Assalamu alaikum. I'll just begin with introducing myself. My name is Hadia Mohammed. I'm currently studying journalism in the UK in Edinburgh. And I've been an activist for Palestine for many years, which is another sign to show that this has not only been happening since October 7th, it's been happening for decades. And I'm just going to be speaking on the media's complicity and my experience studying journalism pre October 7th and post October 7th. For me, it has been a wide awakening, I'd say. The media is not what I had thought it to be. Journalism is not what I had thought it to be. And now, the reports coming out of Gaza, the reports coming out of Palestine, it's absolutely horrendous. The images, the videos that we're having to see, completely horrifying. And in terms of statistics, they say that Gaza is now the deadliest place on earth for a journalist to be in. There are more than 100 journalists and media workers, media reporters who have been killed by Israeli airstrikes since October. And there was an annual report done by the Palestinian Journalist Syndicate, where they found that Israel killed 102 journalists and media reporters in Gaza just between October and December of 2023. And the report also documented that there were more than 1,000 violations against journalists across Palestine. That includes areas such as the West Bank, Gaza, Jerusalem, and some of the 1948 occupied territories. So we can see another sign is that we can see it's not just Gaza, it's also West Bank that they're targeting. Non-Hamas states. So what has been puzzling me for the past 6 months, I would say, is that if those reporters, if those journalists were European, what would we have not heard? What would be different? And it's something that you can see a stark one-sidedness. You can see hypocrisy. You can see bias in the coverage, and you can also see a habit of deliberate attack on journalists. And this has not been happening since October 7th. This has been happening for decades, as we are reminded by the murder of the journalist Shireen Abu Akleh. When they targeted her, assassinated her, sniper shot her and killed her in the streets as she was reporting with her press vest, with her helmet. She was doing her job. She was telling the truth. And they didn't just stop there. Their brutality exceeds beyond imagination. They did not just stop at killing her. They broke into her funeral. They threw her coffin down. They destroyed her monuments that the Palestinians have put up in the city for her. So it's not something that's started on October 7th. There were about 1,000 Palestinian journalists working in Gaza when Israel carpet bombed in October. And what is also mind blowing is that Israel controls movement in Gaza. They control who can be let in, who can be let out. And this covers Palestinian reporters, this covers international reporters and journalists, foreign reporters from entering, and it speaks volumes about the heavy censorship and the lengths they are going to hide the truth. So only a limited number of international journalists have been embedded within the Israeli military as spokespersons, but they are forbidden from contacting Palestinians. They cannot interview Palestinians. Israel, the state of Israel, the government, they require their reports to be reviewed before publishing any article or any broadcast. And that tells a lot. So as of right now, over 100 journalists have been killed. And when we compare that mortality rate, it exceeds those of American combat soldiers in the Vietnam War, the Korean War, or World War II. And the injured reporters that Israel has targeted, including, I'm sure you would have all seen the amazing and Al Jazeera reporter Baluch. He cannot access essential health care because the Israeli attacks have destroyed much of Gaza's health infrastructure. They are bombing hospitals, they are bombing health cares, they're bombing refugee camps. They're doing everything against the law. They're breaking international law. And they were never a state to abide by law, so it's not shocking, but it's horrific. They're targeting the journalists. They're abducting them. A Palestinian journalist was recently abducted a few days ago. She was gone missing for a few days. Thankfully, she came out to say that she's alive and well, but they made her watch them kill her brother. So they're not targeting them alone. They're targeting their families. They're abducting them. They're kidnapping them. They're assassinating them, and it's something that confirms the genocide and the ethnic cleansing that the Palestinians are having to experience. Now, with regards to media complicity, it is undeniable that there have been widespread and prominent failures, whether that's from the words they use, the dehumanizing language they refer to Palestinians as, to the passive voice largely used to downplay the Israeli responsibility for its war crimes. And a recent example is a Sky News report. They had published an article on the killing of the Palestinian child pinned by Israeli forces, and it read a bullet accidentally straying in the back of a van and killing a 3 to 4 year old young lady. Accidentally straying. Another report changed the phrasing to a young girl, but kept the self-propelling wandering bullet accidentally straying. Then there were the allegations that Hamas had beheaded 40 Israeli babies, which everyone jumped in the bandwagon to believe. Everyone was covering that story, was resharing that story, republishing it, only for the CNN journalists that issued it, only for them to retract it after a lot of people confirmed them and there were thousands of backlash that this is not true, this is a hoax, this it's lies, it's Israeli narrative propaganda again. So they retracted it, but they never issued an apology. They never acknowledged it. They just retracted it. And this is the damage that the Israelis do. This is what they have been doing, and the way that they're framing a narrative that's absolutely dangerous. Then we have the biased language used to describe the Palestinians. And it's obvious. Another example is The Guardian. They refer to Israeli hostages as women and children, but the Palestinian prisoners that have been held captive for years, um, they refer to them as women and people aged 18 and younger. When they're covering the war, I hate to call it a war, but that's that's just another tactic that they use to downplay the circumstance, downplay the situation. They would say rockets killed 2 Israelis, 2 Gazans died, 2 people from West Bank died, but the rockets killed 2 Israelis. So when you put them side by side, you can see the clear bias, the clear one-sidedness that the media has, that the media is complicit. Now, when they're reporting about actions from Hamas, they would, frame it as terrorists. Well, if an Israeli soldier, an example of this is when an Israeli soldier, he was videoed shooting a civilian for nothing, absolutely nothing, shooting a civilian in the West Bank, and the CNN headlined it as a man in military fatigues rather than a member of the IDF or the Israeli killed a Palestinian. And this is a common tactic of Western media that they have been using for years. They paint the person of color, they paint a black, they paint an Arab or a Muslim or an Arab Muslim as terrorists or as murderers, while the white male offender is perceived to have mental issues. So this isn't shocking. And for me, what I find even funnier is the fact that the spokespersons for the Israeli military are all white people. They're all essentially people with European ethnic backgrounds. So, back to the choice of words. The choice of words, depending on the nationality of the victims, tends to actively blame Palestine as the aggressor and the victims as Israeli, but they completely omit the aggressor when Israel is the aggressor and the victims are Palestinian. And this isn't this isn't journalistically right because it is a journalist's duty to maintain linguistic consistency in their reporting to prevent reinforcement of unconscious stereotypes that perpetuate biased narratives. So at the same time, the mainstream media, they blindly trusted Israel and the Netanyahu's regime when the country said that there were 1,400 victims of the October 7th attack. But on November 10th, Israel then admitted that the death toll was in fact 1,200. So there is a little coverage of the Palestinian perspective as Western media feature Western reporters. So they send these Western reporters who have no knowledge, no connection about Israel or about Palestine, but they dispatch them onto the ground, they dispatch them to the region with no language, no culture or context. And this is something called parachute journalism, and it is extremely dangerous because they can paint the picture for millions of people. And if they do not understand something, if they do not have the background knowledge of something, they can misinform people, they can miseducate people. And that is exactly what they have been doing. Adding to that, Israel controls who enters Gaza. So these journalists that have been dispatched on ground, they cannot even enter Gaza. So they are reporting on the other side, which is Israel. And that is not journalistically fair. So I'd say it is thanks to the Gazan journalists like Plessia, like Motaz, like Belusha, like Mohammed, who have been there from the beginning, who have been risking their lives to show us what is happening inside Gaza's walls. And they've not only been risking their life and risking the life of their families, but they've also been going through horrifying experiences, especially when they cannot access electricity and the internet to let us know what's going on, to update us. So they'd have blackouts for hours, and we don't know if they're alive, if they're dead, what's happening. They've been silenced. So when you look at the interviews that Western media conduct, interviewees from Gaza and Palestine, the large majority of whom have lost their loved ones, their relatives, their family members have been taken from them, and they're often asked with a very degrading, dehumanizing question: do you condemn Hamas? And the first question of an interview sets the tone. So when Palestinians are asked whether they condemn Hamas, it takes away from the real topic, their experience and their resistance. It casts their suffering as non important. And the interviewees end up spending a large chunk of the interview being forced to condemn Hamas rather than speaking about their decade long misery and loss, the resistance to oppression. Yet, on the other hand, when Israelis are interviewed, even as Israel has been bombarding, even as the ICJ has ruled they have been breaking international law, they, for months, let alone years, they are not pressured to condemn the crimes carried out by their own government and the actions of Netanyahu, who has been accused of having numerous war crimes to his name. So the one sided narrative is very obvious. And the core task of a journalist is to gather, verify, and present information to the public in a fair, accurate, and unbiased manner. But Israel Palestine, it's been an ongoing headline in publications since October 7th. And the journalists have a responsibility now, and they should have a responsibility now, to navigate through those developments while sticking to these core journalistic principles. And it is something that a lot of Western media they fail to do because they want to report on both sides. But there are no both sides. You have one side with an iron dome, you have another side with rocks. So for the first time ever, there were genocides before, there are genocides happening now, but for the first time ever, a genocide is taking place live on news channels, on live TV, on social networks. You can open your phone, you can go on any app, and you can see the horrific videos that are coming out of Palestine right now. And this is different because it's for the first time that it is publicized, that is televised, which was not the case for Rwanda, for example, or Bosnia. So it's distressing to observe how easily this massacre is gradually being pushed off of the front pages of the newspapers. The broadcasting, they're not covering it anymore. They like, for example, Al Shifa Hospital. They haven't covered anything on the burning and the attack on the Al Shifa Hospital that left over 400 people dead and much more bodies to be found. So it's come to a point where we're 6 months in. The media has done their job in misinforming people and spreading misinformation, and now they're not publishing, they're not covering anything anymore because people are essentially normalized and they're now desensitized from what's happening. It's just another day. And I find this absolutely hypocritical for the media because we're expecting the media to publish news, and this is very newsworthy. This is very important. This is essential to cover, and it's becoming a secondary subject. And just as the countries that signed the Genocide Convention are obliged to take steps to prevent one, journalists should be able to do their best to put a stop to all war crimes being committed in Gaza. And what I like to quote is a motto by this amazing Iranian journalist. She has her own motto where she says journalists should not report both sides, but the truth. And for me, you know, post October 7th, having studied journalism, I've experienced my own personal problems in the industry, in the field, where I have been told that I need to censor some words that I've written. I need to reframe my story. I need to cover both sides. And it is of my humble belief that neutrality equals complicity. You cannot be neutral. It means that you are complicit. It means that you are for genocide. And it is absolutely impossible to be neutral in the case of genocide. You cannot sit on a fence in the case of genocide. And journalists are meant to report nothing but the truth. And with that doesn't only come October 7th, it comes with the decades of the constant torture, oppression, abuse, and the injustice of the Palestinians at the hands of their oppressors, their Israeli oppressors. And this did not start on October 7th, rather 1948, when the Israel state was created. And resistance has always been a core value for Palestinians as they were forced to resist, as they were forced to flee their land, as the Israeli have stole their lands, bulldozed them, kicked them out of their lands. And the Palestinians, it's their desire of freedom that keeps them going. And it is about time that the West covers that the West covers their yearning for liberation rather than painting them as an aggressor and flowing with the colonial imperialism that should not exist in the 21st century. And that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadia. And I know we have some. I hope I can come back and get some ask some questions, but let me just give some little notes. So I'll come back. Let me just go to Nazim and let's hear from Nazim, and then maybe I can come back and get some questions where you guys could, speak to some of these issues that you mentioned. Nazim, are you able to hear? Are you hearing us? Can you come in and tell us where you sit and from what you've seen, what are your concerns and what is your perspective?
Well, thank you very much, Wayne. Assalamu alaikum. Peace and blessings be upon all of you. I'm here in Guyana. I was listening to Hadia, and a lot of thoughts sort of crossing my mind based on what she and Halim said, but more because Hadia is young, a young activist, a journalist. I've been through 3 decades of journalism in mainstream media, and when she said she was jaded, I sort of felt, in many ways, I too, I'm older, but I'm jaded as well. And watching my own CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, from Guyana has been appalling, to say the least. Most of the Amnets, the American networks, have been appalling on this issue. I recently saw an interview that the CBC conducted with an Israeli ambassador to Canada, I think he was, or the United Nations. And like Hadia said, he was allowed to repeat lies, outright lies, that the world knows are lies. And yet he was unchallenged because this false notion that there are 2 sides to a story. But when you have overwhelming evidence that what the Israeli government have been telling people over the last many years, but let's just focus our attention on the current situation. You know, a proven lies, complete lies, whether it be about Al Shifa, whether it be about the lives lost, whether it be about the schools that they've bombed or the hospitals they've bombed or the graves that they've dug up, or all of it has been lies and proven to be lies by the international community, observers on the ground, eyewitnesses on the ground, uh, United Nations human rights observers on the ground. Everything, the evidence has been overwhelming of targeting journalists and killing journalists, killing the messenger. I teach a course to new Canadian journalists on recognizing and avoiding stereotypes and blind spots. And indeed, what's happening here is that the Guardian, Sky News, the BBC, the CBC in Canada, the American networks, all of them have blind spots. And blind spots is not, we always thought in journalism to check your blind spot. Look at, if you're on a highway and you're driving, before you change lanes, you check your blind spot. You check your rear view mirror, you check your side mirror, you take a glance over just for that blind spot, that one little place where a vehicle might be. And journalists, this is instinctive to always check our blind spot. And yet you find so many Western journalists are not checking their blind spot. And the consequences are eloquently outlined by Hadia, which is, a misinformed public, an uninformed public, an uninspired public. But the opposite is happening. So the question you have to ask, or we have to ask, is that what is happening in the world is not based on the coverage or the miscoverage of mainstream media, but rather social media is playing a significant role in bringing to the public the truth that the mainstream media is not delivering. And we're seeing across the United States and Canada and England and the UK and Europe and the rest of the world, including South Africa, I have to say, at the highest level of their governments, people, individuals, policymakers, think tanks, decision makers, and journalists to some extent, who are prepared to lose their jobs, lose their lives, perhaps in some cases, and to lose their income, to lose their professions. In Canada, we find doctors getting dismissed from their jobs, suspended from their jobs for speaking out. We find professionals who might send an email and somehow their colleague is offended. I have a niece at the university who was, a Jewish pro-Zionist student, said her comments made her feel unsafe, and she was hauled. My niece was hauled before the university administration to answer questions. These kinds of things are happening all the time. It goes unreported, but it's happening, and we know there are some organizations that are keeping statistics. So, but we're seeing this rising up to challenge the dominant narrative, to say we're not accepting the lies anymore, and that is encouraging to me. In many ways, small as it is, it's significant, and I say that to give myself hope that at least when you can, and that's why sometimes I like going to these protests, and I like going to, even though I'm older and I'm also jaded like Hadia, I want to go, because at least it gives me hope to stand shoulder to shoulder with someone who is not going to sort of accept the lies, and is going to be prepared to see the truth, speak the truth, and demand that justice be given to those people who have been victimized for such a long time, beyond October 7th, but more specifically what is happening now. What is also clear to me from where I sit is that there is a small but significant shift in public opinion in the United States and in the UK. I had a minister from the Canadian government call me a few days ago, and we were talking about, Canada. He's the minister in the government of Canada. I don't want to mention his name because I really don't have permission to. He wasn't speaking to me. He's speaking to me more like a friend, but he's a senior minister in the government, and he was talking about how blistered his government was, the Liberal government of Canada, at the fact that they have been a complete boycott in all of the mosques in Canada, all. And I saw the list of the number of mosques that signed this, that in the month of Ramadan and henceforth, going forward, that no politician, regardless of which party they represent, are welcome in the mosque. Period. That's it. And he felt like at first, yeah, they got it wrong, but there's been a change now. The government has passed a ceasefire resolution, a permanent ceasefire resolution. They have suspended all arms sales to the state of Israel, and a couple of other bold and very good initiatives. But the Muslim community is still holding its ground. That tells me that the Muslim community in Canada, although it's about close to 2 million in a population of 33 million, which is not very significant, but still significant enough that in pockets of areas or constituencies, come election time, that the Muslims hold the crucial swing vote in order to determine who wins and who doesn't. And we're seeing the same pattern playing out in the United States. Biden and the Democrats, God bless them. Yeah, it's true. I'm not going to take it away from them. They have had under Obama annual iftars at the White House, and this has been going on. Obama instituted it, and it was continued after him. Trump didn't have it, but Biden tried to have it again this year, and not a single Muslim accepted the invitation. Not a single Muslim accepted the invitation, and it had to be called off, right? And that's sending a message. Sunak is also seeing dissent within. Hadia could speak better to this because I think she's in the UK. About what's happening there, and an implosion within the Tories, basically saying your lawyers were telling you that a genocide was happening in Gaza, and that Israel was committing this genocide. Palestinians don't just die; they're killed, and they're killed by bombs, they're killed by missiles, they're killed by. Some of the videos that I've seen are so horrendous that I don't know how people can deny. I only ever see stuff like that in movies, and I've been to war zones. I've been to Afghanistan many times, and I've been to when the Syrian war was going on. I've been to Syria on the Turkish side, through the Turkish side, and when you see war, it frightens you. I've been in Afghanistan when bombs were going off, and I was in the middle, trying to get from one point to another point to cover the situation, and I have never seen anything like those kinds of bombs that have been dropped on Gaza. Not one, hundreds, thousands of bombs. And so the lawyers in the UK have been telling the government that this is tantamount to genocide. This is war crimes. This is war crimes that is happening. And Israel is committing these war crimes. And they hid that information from the public. Talk about transparency. So it's not only the media that has blind spots and has to check their blind spots, but these governments are now going to face the consequences of their policy. And I believe that all of this that is happening in the world, the protests, whether it be on social media or live protests, and calling out politicians, if this leads to a change in opinion, because then you have to recognize that it's 80 years, right, of opinion, of shaping public opinion to accept the fact that the Jewish people, because of what they faced in the Holocaust, they deserve a homeland of their own, right? But unfortunately, the world, from the very inception of the creation of that state, recognized that there was another people that lived on that state. But what the Israeli Zionists have been doing internationally was waging a campaign to prepare people's mind for something like this. This is what I'm beginning to think, that what we're seeing now is they've prepared the public mind to accept the fact that because the Holocaust happened and 6 million Jews were killed, not in the Middle East, not in Saudi Arabia, not in Morocco, not in Iraq, not in Syria, not in Egypt, that had thriving, or North Africa, Tunisia, Algeria. These countries, Libya, had thriving and still have small communities of Jewish people, beautiful synagogues, thriving little communities. The Holocaust did not happen in the Middle East. It happened in Europe. It's a European racist problem. And so from the very beginning, the international community, minus probably Churchill, who was a racist, but by and large, vast majority of leaders recognized that the Palestinian people had a right to live on that land. And so the question now that is facing the international community is, what is the solution, right? And like Hadia probably knows, and our other guest Halim probably have followed, I used to like reading Haaretz. Haaretz was one of the papers that I read. There's the 792 magazine. There's a lot of really good journalists, Israeli journalists, Jewish journalists, in covering their own country, and they're speaking truth, right? Hadia knows this. And they're speaking the truth. And one of them that I really admire, because I've met him and I've been reading his column, called Twilight Zone, in Haaretz, one of the prominent newspapers in the state of Israel. And his name is Gideon Levy. And Gideon goes around the world and gives talks and speeches and so on and so forth. And there are others, many, many others, policymaker David Grossman, all of these people recognize that Netanyahu, and especially him, and I've interviewed the man, right, that especially him, he does not think one generation. He doesn't think now. He thinks like he's a generational thinker, right? Well, you can call him a thinker. That's sort of kind of grudgingly giving him respect, because he's a psychopath. He is a sociopath, a psychopath. He's a killer. He's a murderer, and the world community is calling him that. But it doesn't dissuade him. He's worse than Trump in many ways, because Trump could do the worst things and still stand up and says, elect me, I couldn't be your president. If you don't elect me, the United States is over. It's an existential issue. I mean, who says that unless their ego is bursting at the seams? Netanyahu kills, destroys. I mean, even Golda Meir was when she was in power, when she was the prime minister of Israel, she actually said that I would never forgive the Arabs for letting me kill their babies. She was killing babies and knew she was killing babies, but she was saying, I would not forgive them for letting me kill their babies, right? Netanyahu kills, murders with impunity, and nothing happens to him. The man is ashamed. He's not ashamed of murdering thousands and thousands of people and maiming so many others. So, countless others. So what these Israeli journalists have been saying is that Netanyahu's policy is to continue the conflict with the Palestinian people, to agitate, to even supply arms and equipment to Hamas. We know that. That's documented now, right? To support Hamas materially, so that Hamas will continue to attack Israeli interests with their little Scud missile, whatever they're throwing over. Nothing gets past the Iron Dome, as Hadia said, and we know that, right? Between 2001 to now, to last October, there were, if my memory serves me right, 36 or 38,000, no, 68,000 bombs and missiles or whatever Hamas had that they were, launching at Israel. Sorry, 32,000. It only killed 68 people. So in between a period of 2 decades, only 68 people, one child, unfortunately, died on the Israeli side. A couple of animals died. I'm not counting them, but 68. So when you look at the other, the reverse situation, you see thousands of people killed and destroyed when Israel launches attacks. And there have been several attacks against Gaza since that time. The Gaza offensive, which took place in 2005 on the Ariel Sharon and so on and so forth, 2012, 2009, 2008, on and on. It's been going on for this October 7th was a response by Hamas against Israel that led to what we're seeing now, this genocide. Let's call it that, because the world community is at that stage where no one hesitates in calling it a genocide. So people like Gideon Levy sees that this ongoing conflict serves the interest of Israel. And what he sees is what he's been writing about for 35 years, that they have been encroaching and occupying more and more Palestinian land, settling its Zionists on those land, building up little towns and villages and little cities, a little cluster of areas. So if you look at the map now of where all the Israeli illegal settlers are occupying on the West Bank, for example, how are you going to remove 450,000, and it's growing by the number because they're giving out new permits since October, even though the international community is raging and crazy. I mean, they're probably sanctioning settlers. Imagine that. The United States of America, Canada, and the UK are sanctioning settlers, right, who are armed and are committing aggressions against Palestinians, taking away their water so that the olive trees don't have water and their vegetable gardens can't grow anything. And they're literally pushing them off the land. And so what I believe is happening here is that it comes to a certain point where you have so many settlers, and in total, if you add the East Jerusalem, you add the West Bank, and you add the Golan, and you look at all these illegal settlers, you have a total of 750,000 illegal settlers, right? How is Israel? Israel will then look at the United States of America, right, its patron, its sponsor, and say, we can't move these people without going to war against our own people. And I'll tell you why this is important. Because in 2005, Ariel Sharon sent the Israeli army into Gaza to remove 500, not 1,000, 500 Israeli settlers in Gaza. You know what they did? They got kicked out. They started a movement, and they built a museum in Tel Aviv to remember that Ariel Sharon removed them from Gaza, a land that they considered to be their rightful inheritance, right? And so when they went back in recently, I saw these pictures, and they were written in Hebrew, these slogans they were holding up. So I could recognize the Israeli flag, I can recognize the IDF flag, but then there was this weird one, and I looked it up, and that is the movement. So the Israeli armies were holding up, said, we are reclaiming Gaza from 2005 when 500 were kicked out by Ariel Sharon, right? So Israel will say, do you want the state of Israel, which was set up is a Jewish state, right, for Jews who survived the Holocaust? Do you want us to go to war with ourselves? In other words, there will be a civil war. You want Jews to fight Jews? This is not going to happen. So they will plead their case to the international community to say, do something else. The Palestinians cannot have this land, because that would mean uprooting, and they're not going to just leave their water and sewage and their nice little garages and their air-conditioned houses and walk away with, they're gonna burn it, right? And that's all right if they burn it because it's illegal. It's illegal occupation in the first place. So what are they going to say to the international community? And it's going to get there because all these hollow promises of two-state solution, two-state. I wish people would just get off the point and start talking practically. There is no two-state solution, right? Because of this occupation, this illegal occupation that's been going on. They're not left the land vacant, and they're still terrorizing. They've killed from October, according to the United Nations Human Rights Commissioner, Volker Turk, they've killed over 400 Palestinians in the West Bank who are simply farmers and residents, people there. Even one of the mayors said recently, he says, the youth are bursting at the seam. I don't think we can stop this any longer. And Israel went and bombed not the embassy, not the Iranian embassy in Damascus. Just before the Iranian embassy, they bombed and killed 11 civilians in Syria. They said to stop an arms trade, an arms transfer from Syria into the West Bank. Well, of course, what do you think people are going to do? They're going to sit around and have these armed settlers in support, with the support of the IDF, to come in and terrorize their villages. The villages, right? If you ever been there, I've been there. I've been to some of those villages, drove through them, spent time there, had the greatest coffee and greatest hospitality, and they're human beings, they're people. And so you can't do that. So for me, this discussion, while we're not there, I didn't mean to go to the day after, because there is no day after if they keep doing what they're doing, killing 7 aid workers with Central World Kitchen. I mean, what will it take to get Washington and to get London and to get Ottawa and to get Paris and to get all these people to come together to say, Israel, Netanyahu, you're a criminal, you must step down, right? Obviously, if it was another country, they'd probably just eliminate him. Just send an assassination team like they did with Saddam Hussein or some other tyrannical leader, because he's worse, right? And just take him out. But they're not going to do that because, yeah, they're friends. Okay, you don't kill your friends, But they've been telling him literally. Even the Democratic Party, who's his friends, Chuck Schumer, said to him, "You got to go, buddy. You're bad. You're bad for business. You're bad. You're wicked. You're evil. Get out." Nancy Pelosi, who would have thought Nancy Pelosi would say something like that? So there is some slight shifts, which gives me hope, because honestly, when Halim, my friend and brother Halim, asked me to be on the show, I was like, what am I going to say? And then I saw Hadia, and I thought, great, I feel encouraged. I got some hope here, young activists and so on. So, our drive in Guyana, where we're from, in the Caribbean, there is small incremental movements that gives me hope. And I think all at the tail end of Ramadan, we're finishing our fasting over the month of Ramadan. We're now getting to the end. It's just less than a week now before we celebrate Eid. And they wanted to have a ceasefire before Ramadan. That ceasefire has not happened. And now we're at the tail end of Ramadan, and there's still bombs are still raining down on people. The people of Gaza are the greatest hope and inspiration that I've ever encountered with any people in the world. And I've traveled all over the place. I've been to famine-infested places. I've been to drought, and I've been all over the place. Pakistan, Africa, the Middle East, across the Middle East and Asia. But I tell you, the Palestinian people are the greatest hope that we have, that there are human beings still alive in this world, that they, even all the suffering, they're still fasting. You can see the mosques at night crowded with people. Here in Guyana, we pray a little bit. For a little bit, it's hot here. Some of the mosques, many of the mosques are not air conditioned. We could only take so many cycles of prayer. In Gaza, they're standing all day. they're running around trying to find food for their families and for themselves. And at night, they're just praying all night and reciting from the glorious book of the Quran. It's encouraging to see this type of belief and humanity still in existence. And I know there's a lot to discuss. I'm going to stop there and Wayne, over to you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Brother Nazim. It is, as I listen to you and the the hope and the encouragement, the light, the no matter how dim it may appear, but there's some light. One of the things you said that strikes me, you see your reference to the Civil War. It may very well come to that. Because this guy, as you said, I know you stopped yourself by saying he's not a thinker, but he is a thinker, an evil thinker, right? He's an evil thinker. And he wants to be there. I mean, he has, I don't know what he's seeing, but he's very manipulative. He's one of the best, very manipulative. And so something that people discount. The question I had here, and I wrote it down, I said, because I don't know how our time will go. My question was, how do we not only challenge the dominant narrative of lies, stereotypes, and blind spots to come to a place where we can begin to see that little bit of light that you're talking about? So when you reference the possibility of a civil war, it sort of hit me that maybe that's what it might come to, because the people who are there and who know the truth and know that he's lying will have to ask themselves, how long can we continue to live this lie? Because we were blessed to be able to be brought from some other place to come into this land, to come into the Palestinian land and be accommodated as brothers and sisters. But look at what we're doing now.
Mm.
Look at what we are doing now. So how do we live it ourselves? How do we live it ourselves? And I think that has to be the burning question that they are living with every day. What is this guy trying to do to us? Right? How do we live it ourselves? And at some point in time, that self is going to split.
Yeah.
It's going to split.
I have Dr. Rain.
Yes.
I've been listening very attentively, mostly behind the scenes here, because Brother Nazim, it's good to see you again. That's just the idea. Pleasure. First of all, let me say what Hallam knows, but the rest you two don't. This is the very first broadcast on NTech Radio. We have switched from the previous platform that we used to appear on. So I'm just behind the scenes making sure that all the little pieces are working well. But I want to respond to a couple of things. What Dr. Rain is saying, also you, Nazim, what you said. The truth of the matter is, and we have a saying here, we speak truth to lies. We do not speak truth to power, because we're not reinforcing the lies. They teach us the lies with their history. And we must instead debunk those lies and then stand in power together. That's how I see it. We have constantly the media, the mainstream media is controlled by a certain group of people. I want to say in defense of Jewish people, I mean, ordinary good Jewish people. I'm a Hebrew, obviously you can figure that out. And those of you that know me, that Hebrew and Muslim, we're one brother and one sister, and we don't have no difference. But the Zionist people who are not real Jews, they are $20 Jews, are trying to prove a point, and they have these governments propped up behind them, that allows them to create these circumstances. But this is nothing new. They've been doing this for a long time. The truth of the matter is just, if we can use platforms like this to speak truth to lies and then stand in power together, we will overcome their lies. And I see no alternative at this point but to do so. We can't change the government of Israel. It is what it is. The United States and other countries stand behind them, not only financially, which is a shame because you have the people who are the natural inhabitants, don't get nothing from these states except grief. And they're going to give a foreigner or some foreign entity money and human aid and all kinds of stuff to come in and make havoc. They give them weapons. They do all of this stuff. And why are we still sitting here saying, it's like, remind me of the old Negro back in the day of the slavery. He go into church and he pray to God and he beg for salvation and he beg for emancipation. But when he leaves the church, he goes back in the field and he just does the same thing all over again and all over again. We, the people, must stand up. There has got to come a point in time, not as a Palestinian, not as a Muslim, not as a Jew, but as a people, a global citizen, and say enough is enough.
Mm.
That's my position. So
yeah,
no,
I really appreciate that, Philip. I mean, that's why we have these conversations, and I think I also like the fact that tomorrow we're having a forum here, a symposium in Georgetown, where we have a former president, President Donald Ramatar. We have a very prominent and distinguished Guyanese professor, Freddie Kissoon, and Hasib Yusuf, who has lived for many years in Saudi Arabia, Guyanese, very committed and dedicated activist here locally, and some other people. I've been asked to MC that event, and the reason why we're hoping for a cross section of people of all faith communities to come together, because I think without listening to everyone with an open mind, we can find that right balance, and I'm always looking for, as you rightfully said, looking for people who can come together under the same banner of truth telling, whether it be to power or to the lies, or to remove and dispel lies that are told. I'm encouraged personally by many of my Jewish colleagues and former colleagues in journalism, and friends that I have, to know that every single one of them are against the policies of Netanyahu and how he's conducting this war, and what he's been doing, and the genocide has been taking place. You've seen the massive protests in Tel Aviv and in Jerusalem against the government of Netanyahu. A lot of that don't get covered, unfortunately, as well as it should be. Many of the exposure, the 792 magazine that I talked about, they've done several expose on what has been going on in Gaza, the Shifa Hospital, what happened on October 7th, and so on and so forth. Very, very little of that has been amplified by Western journalists, unfortunately. So we have to sort of amplify it, right? And that's what Hadia was saying, that not enough of that is happening, but it's happening on social media. So that's encouraging. I believe that the Jewish people, the people who are who identify themselves as Jewish, but also citizens of the state of Israel, who are standing up to Netanyahu and the warmongers in his cabinet, have to do more. They have to do more. And I say that because I don't know, Halim would remember, I see Tariq Abdul Majid from Jamaica has joined us. Assalamu alaikum. Some of you are young. Hadia might not remember. I don't want to assume what Hadia's age is, but after 9/11, people used to ask, where do you stand on Al-Qaeda? do you support Al Qaeda? And many of us used to be appalled at the question. Like I was like shocked that somebody would ask me, "Do you support Al Qaeda?" Like, what do you think? Of course not. And so more Muslims have to speak up. More Muslims have to speak up. I was encouraged to see when Netanyahu invoked Amalek. You remember Amalek, right, from the Bible. I'm no Bible scholar. I'm not a scholar of the Old Testament or the New Testament at all. Like if anything, I know more about my Quran than I know about. I don't engage in the faith dialogue because I don't. That's not my territory. That's not something that I understand or study. But one of the most prominent biblical scholar responded to him, and it was so eloquent. He said, "You have misunderstood the story of Amalek in the Bible," and he set about demonstrating why that was an abuse of Amalek, the way Netanyahu invoked it, right? And it just drew me back to a lot of the discussion that we started to have in the Muslim community in the West about how Al Qaeda and Al Shabaab in Somalia and Boko Haram and the Taliban have misinterpreted and misapplied key verses of the Quran dealing with jihad, right? And so we had to set about to correct within our own community the correct understanding of these Quranic verses that were being misappropriated, misinterpreted for actions that were deemed criminal and destructive. And the Quran could never, God could never want destruction of people who are innocent of any crime. That's God's domain. You don't claim that for yourself. And so I think, and then people kept asking 2007, 2008, 2009, why don't more Muslims speak up? Why don't more Muslims say anything? And one young student in the United Kingdom, a young high school student actually, she did a project where she kind of used social media. At that time, social media was just coming into its own, but she used like Facebook and public data, like publicly accessible data, to put together a spreadsheet of all the she only looked at prominent Muslims like leaders and imams and presidents of organizations across the world, and came up with 80,000 names. 80,000. She said, I had to stop counting at a certain point because it got too much, right? And that's only the top layer of leadership within the Muslim community that have condemned Al Qaeda and condemned. At that time, ISIS had not come into play yet, but Al Shabaab, Boko Haram, and these other kind of Taliban and so forth and so forth. So, where are the 80,000 Jewish, names put together in a list, showing the world that 80,000? I know the major rabbis in New York, for example, all condemn Netanyahu, all distance themselves from it. Many of them have come forward. There's one prominent one that speaks all the time because he's very eloquent and he speaks dynamically and he's very good. And he's, I've met the man, the rabbi in Toronto, but where are the others? Where are the thousands of names or the hundreds of names condemning this genocide and the government of Netanyahu? I don't see them.
Yeah. It's welcome, Brother Tariq. I don't know how much of the conversation you've heard, but let me just give you a chance to say a few words as we seek to be getting into our home stretch. So I'm giving you a chance to make your comments, and then we will kind of provoke some more questions in this dialogue. Brother Tariq.
Yes, alhamdulillah. So thanks a lot for making me be a part of the program. I heard a good bit, and just to reiterate and reinforce a lot of what was being said, I think, as you said, one of the most impactful thing would be those who are being considered, those who are actually Jews themselves, and those who doesn't support Zionism, because it is true that we do know that there are persons across the world who do not support it, but there are many that are misinformed. And there are many who actually believe, as we know, yes, that it's actually a prophecy being fulfilled. So unfortunately, we find that the dynamics is changing. And as he says, as you know, brother Nazim spoke, he spoke about, Amalek and how it was. They said this was a big misquote because unfortunately there are a lot of Christians, and even locally here in Jamaica, there are a lot who believe they approach me and they believe that, you know, this has to happen. I know those people shouldn't be there. Israel needs to be established for Christ to return, and this is a staunch belief amongst us. So even locally, it is a discussion that we have to be having consistently, constantly. Because when we are posting on social media, having the discussions and the conversations and having our march, when all of this happen, people are saying, "Why are you all doing this? This is a prophecy that has to be fulfilled for Christ to come." So it is unfortunate that many are misinformed, and I think it really would be a good thing, as the brother mentioned, that a lot of times is those who are within that circle need to speak out, and they are speaking out, as you said. But as you said, their voices need to be louder. They need to amplify their voices. So inshallah, I think that's I just reiterate it and listen to the conversations and then add my input. In addition to that, inshallah.
Well, Tariq, before you leave, your
Yeah.
introduction, most person don't know you on the program
Yes.
here, and your position in Jamaica.
Right. So alhamdulillah. So what I host a radio program here. It's an Islamic radio program. It comes on the national radio station, Voice of Islam. And I'm also the public relations officer for the Islamic Council of Jamaica. So that's pretty much the body that overarches all the masajid here. It's not a massive community. We have about 15 masajid island-wide, and a few others. So I'm also on a registered local charity here as well. I'm one of the directors for the Jamaica Foundation for Islamic Charity. So a few things. So yes, I'm an accountant by profession, but quite an activist in Islam, and just clarifying issues on Islam. That's one of the main objectives of the program that we run weekly, is letting people know what Muslims stand for, what Islam stand for, and bringing another perspective to various issues and societal problems that we have around. So I think that's pretty much the introduction, I'd say.
Thanks, Brother Tariq. And that helps, because the conversation, as Nazim is alluding to now, is really what kind of dialogue will we have? Because there are a lot of, Hadia referred to it in the context of the dominant narratives. And we've had these dominant narratives for years. We are now seeking to break that mold by saying, these are lies. We've been living lies for so many years.
Yep.
That is the fundamental challenge that we have. We've been living lies for so many years. Okay, take Boko Haram, for example. And so let's get to the heart of it. If you have in the north of Nigeria, we are talking about dominant Muslim communities in the north, right? There are other Muslims across Nigeria and so on, but they dominate in the north. To the point where the guys who are there believe that it is their right to govern. I don't know how much you guys know about Nigeria, but that is part of that narrative. And so when Major General Olusegun Obasanjo came into power, there was a split, because it's the first time the South is going to lead Nigeria, not the North. You see who we moved back to, what's his name? Major General Ibrahim, what's his name now? The guy who's there now. He's from the North as well. He was there before. Buhari, right? So when you understand that cultural narrative and how that evolves, so Muslims to the North, dominant language being Hausa, and of course, as Muslims, you're speaking Arabic. And now we have a group of guys who believe now that they can terrorize Boko Haram and say, okay, I want you to recite a couple surahs for me. And you can't begin to say one, you're gone. Now, what is that? It's terrorism, it's ignorance, and a lack of understanding of what Islam means. So even if you can recite the Quran at 6 or 7, word for word, surah for surah, but you don't understand what those things mean, you're still hollow. And I think that's something that we have to address in all our faiths. What do these things mean for me as an individual? Not for the Muslim community, for me. And that's something we touched on Sunday. Brother Philip we had a session, CARICOM, Sovereign People's Concerns. And we're talking about going back to values, to foundation, family values. So as a Muslim, good Muslim, quote unquote, versus the rogue Muslim, Boko Haram, if you could put it in that context. I'm trying to keep it simple, not getting into, all the teachings and all these different, but just simple. And they've used that now to fight against what is seen as the norm, right? So these are conversations that we need to have across the board. I'm from Trinidad originally, multi-ethnic society. We have everybody, right? Black, white, Jew, Muslim, Christian, Buddha, everything. Everybody is there. A true rainbow society. Listen to our watchwords: discipline, production, and tolerance. Tolerance for others. You're not the only person in this world. So when you give me a narrative of 6 million Jews have been persecuted and we must never forget it, and I say, okay, what about my 400 million black people? What about them? Must I forget them? We can have lots of conversations, but we don't have them. And therefore we let one dominate. And therein lies some of the challenges that we have. The dominant narrative has been there for so long that people feel distressed to come up with the alternative views. The 80,000 who are now speaking out should always speak out. Truth needs to prevail, not lies, at all times. And so that is the kind of conversation we need to have. What is the truth? Let's tell the truth no matter what. Let the lies fall where they may. And if we don't do that, my brothers and sisters, we're going to have problems right through. We have to speak truth to lies, no matter what, no matter where. That's why we're here. That's why we're here. Right? And so it speaks to that belief. Right? The faiths that we have, all of us, quote unquote, are good sons and daughters of the Father. And so, we're speaking truth to lies. And I think that's the essence of it. In the Jewish state that has been created, I've seen some narratives where those guys who are before the rock and facing the Wailing Wall, these are ones who are in Israel, and that's all they do. Nothing else. And they've been challenged by those who say, well, listen, once you spend all day at the Wailing Wall, we out here busting our chops supporting you because you don't do anything. You don't contribute anything to the society. But yet you want to stop us and say you are ultra-Orthodox. What does that mean? So my brothers, we have lots and lots of discussions that need to be had. We are just scratching the surface, trust me. And that's how serious it is. So the issue that we are facing here in terms of Palestine is one which is much bigger in the truest sense. What is and how do we speak truth to lies so that guys who can capture the state like Netanyahu and be so persistent and arrogant and so on do not get the chance to do those things, because that's what he's holding the whole state to hostage. And so we have to figure out how do we deal with Netanyahu. Remember, now he is trying to avoid jail time as well, and the longer he stays in office, he's immune from prosecution. I mean, that's a factor as well. We may not think about it, but that's a motivation for him. Look at when he was the other guy who was there before, the general. He was like a fish out of water because prosecutions were coming, cases were being called. So he is highly motivated to stay in that office for as long as he can. Right. So what we have been discussing here is possibly lots of narratives in one grand narrative, but there are many smaller narratives that are taking place. So I think the contributions here from Halim to Hadia to Nazim and Brother Tariq and even the contributions from Brother Philip point us in the direction where there has to be much more dialogue. So Brother Nazim, as you have your sessions, perhaps it might be good to sort of tease out some more truths from others who are in your midst and who may be keeping quiet. This is not a time to be quiet. This is a time to be able to speak out and to add your voice to the changes that we want, because it's change. I mean, I noted here, Brother Nazim spoke about it. Governments are going to be called out. There are changes in public opinion. But unless we call them out, they remain and do what they do. They're accountable to us. But if we don't call them out, they don't even know that we exist, except when it's time to vote again, to get back in that office. But they are supposed to be serving us, not the other way around. Right? So we have to call them out. And we should not be afraid, because we think that, the relationship between church and state, we shouldn't get caught up with that and be afraid of that. We are all human beings. We are all part of humanity. And therefore, integrity, injustice, accountability, and so on are values which we all have at our core, no matter who we are, no matter where we are. And therefore, that's a universal appeal. And so I would suggest that, part of this changing of the dominant narrative means that we all have to add our voices to the kind of changes that we want to see, and go out there and let the truth be told. From the mountaintops, from the villages, from the hamlets, from the mosques, from wherever, let those truths be told. We should not be afraid of that, because we shouldn't be afraid of the truth. If we're speaking the truth, there's nothing to be afraid of. So let the truth prevail. Let lies fall by the wayside, because it is not sustainable. They can't hide forever. And the facts are there. I mean, over 75 years, we know when the state of Israel was formed. We have it. We have all the information. And so we could peel away the layers. I mean, this is genocide. In any form or fashion, it is genocide. And therefore, we have to find ways to, speak to that. So,
Let me look.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, Doctor. When we look at lies, the Israelis, they are empires of lies. They are the empire of it. And we have seen that some of the Jewish settlers, I must say that the thieves who thieved this Palestinian land, they are calling on that UNRWA, they are terrorist organization and so on. That's the people who supply food for these people. Let us look where the Jews or the Zionists really came from. They should be fighting Germany today, because Germany, who is responsible of more than over 6 million Jews. But instead of that, now they come together, and Germany is one of the countries they increase in arm export to Israel during this conflict here right now. And when you look at countries who want to help the Palestinian, let us use what you call the people from Yemen. I would not call them Houthis or something. But when you look at them coming to rescue, if you see your neighbor getting attacked or your brother getting attacked, and you cannot come to the rescue, but you have a next big bully, two other bullies, the US and the UK, they are the terrorist states. Because these people are fighting and they are a resistant group. People might want to call it Hamas or whatever it may be. But these people are the resistant fighters. Because just recently, in the Jordan Valley, Israel seized 2,000 acres of land. And it goes on and on. They're trying to take the next 4,200 again. Land from the Palestinian people. And we must look back prior to October the 7th. Whereas Netanyahu was showing a map through Gaza for that canal which they want to build. But everyone is wanting to know how this canal is going to build through Gaza, and it's populated. The Ben Gurion Canal I'm talking about, what they want to cut through Gaza. And that is because of the wealth, the oil field, which would not benefit Israel alone, but it would benefit the United States and the UK. And anyone who comes to the assistance to their brother Palestinian, the neighbor, and we have seen that Biden, he now bombed Syria, Iraq, Yemen, to ensure that Israel continue to slaughter our Palestinian brothers and sisters. And we have seen that you have the most powerful army, or the next powerful army in the world. There is the other powerful one that's supplying you bombs. And you said you have 6,000 people in a small area, which is like about 2.5 miles wide and about 23 miles long. And you have some hostage, which you say you want to claim. They don't want to find no hostage alive. They just want to destroy, meaning ethnic cleansing of our Palestinian brothers and sisters. And under international law also, no government or people have the right to seize or annex or conquer another country's territory. We have seen that the Palestinians are fighting for the land which belongs to them. The Zionists, they belong to Germany. Let me go back to Germany, not Palestine, because there's where they come from. They hug them and bring them out of love, and you turn back and you want everything what they have. And you have seen many videos also, whereas the settlers, they're calling that they want more land, or they're going to seize the Palestinian farms or whatever they may have. The Jewish settlers, and they are blocking these trucks from getting aids, getting food for the Palestinian people. We have seen that Israel, where they're committing genocide, and with their lies they're saying it's self-defense. And we have seen that the Jewish people also, the settlers, the thieves, who thief in the Palestinian land. They are claiming that Palestine, the Palestinian, with the captive, that the Hamas have been raping babies and so on, and killing babies. We don't see one bit of evidence. But what we are seeing on a daily news and social media and all over, you're seeing that they're dropping bombs on babies, youths, men, women, children, you name it. And if they know that these Palestinians going to get some grass to eat from a particular place, because there's nothing for them to eat. So when we are saying we have 1 month of Ramadan here, look how many months they are having Ramadan, nothing to eat. We could see that you cannot cleanse or ethnic cleansing of a people who have resistance and they have faith in their Lord. And the world have known about the international law concerning annex and so on. And every day for 75 years, you name it, there is not a day gone past. Can you imagine if the United States used that law, what Israel is using, that if you commit or you attack a citizen because you are taking my house and you come in a bulldozer and bulldoze the whole family home. And the United States play a blind eye. And every 5 minutes or 5 seconds, they have a crime in the United States. Let it go in a bulldozer and bulldoze those person home. But they are allowing this ethnic cleansing. I would call it ethnic cleansing. So Hamas is not a terrorist organization, but Hamas is a resistant group to resist the occupier who want to come and take my property. And for surety, if you wake up in the middle of the night and you find a thief in your house trying to steal your gas stove or your television or whatever the case might be, what you gonna do? These people in the national media, in the media, you name it, they come in and take your land. And if your neighbor is a Jews or a Zionist, I wouldn't call them Jews because they are good Jews. Zionists, they would come, if they like your house, come with a soldier and take out everything from your home, throw it out in front of your eyes. And you cannot do anything. And what they have, what these poor kids have, is they have, I wouldn't say rock. I would say pebbles. And yet they would shoot them, either in the eyes or in a kneecap or something to maim them, to make them not for their life, the lost one of the eyes. When you have the UN is losing, have lost 173 or even more of their workers that they disregard the UN or the UN security. These are all coming from the United States backing and the UK. And we have 2 journalists with us here. When you have over 136 of them who were given live reports concerning what is being happening to our Palestinian brothers and sisters, I would not look at them as a Muslim, but as part of humanity. It should not be happening. And over 3,000 who have been killed with a bomb, the figure is much more than that. Because there are thousands who is in that trouble, which we cannot give accountability for that. But it's coming to an end. We see the whole world have turned against Netanyahu and his set of cannibals. The very first day the war began, which war going to begin, and you're going to say, and it's against the international law concerning food and human treatment. You're going to bomb hospitals to make sure that the injured, over 75,000, the injured is not getting treatment. And then you're going to have sniper around the hospitals, Al Shifa Hospital, you name all the hospitals. Have snipers, anyone move around in and out, they be shot, they be killed. So when you have over 75,000 injured, and it's much more than that, and there's not a hospital, if your child gets a flu here, you want to rush them to the best hospital and give them the best treatment. Those people for the past months, our Palestinian brothers and sisters, they haven't been starved. And they have been using, Israel been using that starvation as a weapon. Water, food, sleep, you name it, because there is no mattress for them to sleep on. So when you're going to detain over 8,000 within a fighting age, what they're trying to tell you, that they are afraid of the few thousand who have faith in the Lord and not afraid of death, because you're thief in my land, you're thief in everything, you're stealing my dignity, anything you could, I don't know what else to call it. And yet they're occupying, they are building more settlements, and yet we cannot have an international army to go in to protect our brothers and sisters in humanity. So I guess we all know that who are the real terrorists. We have the resistance which they blame Hamas on. But they brainwash everyone on national television by way of any time you see this card here and you see somebody like this with it, immediately they brainwash you. From the number of years, you're a terrorist as long as you see them with that headscarf. The biggest terrorist is the United States, the UK, and Israel. They are the terrorist states. Everybody else, they look at terrorists, but they're not looking what they are doing. So, our brothers and sisters in humanity, our Palestinian brothers, let us look what they are doing to them. They are killing the children for a reason, because they don't want the next resistance group comes up. They are killing our sisters not to make babies, because procreation in Islam is a must. And they're killing those women for them not to bring more children in this world to stand up against them. So they want to cleanse not just Gaza, they have already taken up much of Palestine. So Yemen is a brother, is a neighbor of Palestine. They poses no threat to the United States or the UK interests. Only they poses threat to Israel shipping. But yet when they go to do that, the United States and the UK, they're allied. The satanic, the empire of Israel, the US and the UK. They try to protect Israel interests, although they're saying every single day and they know how many Palestinians we killed. So whenever I bring up this, I get a little bit emotion because not because of my Muslim brothers and sisters, because they are human beings. And then this has been happening, and you sending thousands and thousands of bombs, and you're giving them aids to continue. Just recently, $14 billion in military aid. That's the double standard what they're showing. You put in 10 bags of flour up in the air to fall long for these to run to get it, or they line up for food, giving them giving the Zionists, the IDF, a chance to wipe out them to when they got it together. So, Dr. Wayne, sorry to get so
Well,
emotional about
no,
these things.
and that is understandable because I mean, when we talk about these things, we talk about lives and lives lost. We would get emotional because, as you said, we're human beings. We have feelings, um, and so I remember, a couple of times on this show where the ambassador was very emotional. We were emotional as well, just listening to her. So I know that that is inescapable. We have families, we have friends, we have colleagues. I mean, Hadia talked about being a journalist. Nazim is a journalist. What happened to that lady who was targeted, targeted and shot, and they said it's a mistake and so on. I mean, come on. Snipers don't make mistakes.
Also, Corey,
Don't make mistakes. You know what I mean?
yes.
So you can't put that to anybody who's reasonable. A sniper is well trained. You know,
Also,
you talked about eyes and so on. If I'm a soldier and I'm trained, I can disarm you. There are ways I can disarm you. I can shoot your hand, I can shoot your foot, I can shoot, you know. But when you tell me you make a mistake, no, come on, you're insulting me now. You think I'm a fool. And that would irritate anybody because they spoke about it.
they
You
have
took
an event coming up,
an
which
event.
of course
Sorry, go
they
ahead,
have
Hannah.
they have an event which is coming up on the 10th of April, which
Right.
would coincide with our Eid, the Muslim Eid, and they have something which they call cleansing of wherever they have. They have been they have from Texas. They have a special farm, a cattle farm, which they grow these red cows. And this is what would be happening on the 10th of April. That they will slaughter these red cows and burn them in front of these gates of Masjid Al-Aqsa. So that would able that they cleanse this place so they could build the third temple. This is what will be happening on the 10th. So that is why they're seizing all those land from around Masjid Al-Aqsa, around that area. So they have planned to build a temple on the Muslim land, which will create a provocation,
Of
which
course.
will give them an opportunity to kill them, to murder them more. So these cows is going, they have these cows in Texas. And this information I get from Ambassador. And again, I say for the listeners, I know Ambassador is supposed to be on the show here today, this program. But due to a minor surgery which she has to do, and she's in the hospital presently now, and we wish her a fast recovery.
Yeah.
So this will be happening on the 10th. So when you have a Muslim holiday and people with faith believe in the Lord and believe in the places of worship, and you're gonna do that, they are creating that to onslaught them, to border them, anything you would think about. We know about genocide. This is past genocide now.
Yeah, this is provocation at the highest, to prolong the agony, to prolong the fight, and it is incumbent upon us to prolong the calling out to keep the pressure on, because we can't stop. We can't let up. I mean, I was making reference to Hadia's earlier statement about the two sides of a story, and the fact that, you know, she has become so jaded now that you wonder whether they will ever be fair. They don't intend to be fair because they're built on lies, and therefore, you know, you made reference to something called, you said neutrality equals complicity, and I like that statement because that is what it ends up being. You know, in our study of politics and public administration, we had a guy, Dr. Fred Nunes, who wrote something about the nonsense of neutrality. The nonsense of neutrality. How can you be neutral? Right? And so you got to call out the truth. The truth is the truth. It will offend people. That's what the truth hurts. It's not a game. It's not a joke. The truth hurts. And therefore, we have to stand on the truth.
Mm.
And that is why, you know, South Africa is able to speak about this because they went through apartheid. This is apartheid right now that we're talking about. By call it whatever name you want to call it, it's the same thing. And you would recognize that at the end of apartheid, they were truth commissions. Very, very painful. All of us here, your family, my family, the other family, this uncle, this aunt, and so on, brother against brother, and so on, because Nazim's reference to that tendency towards civil war. I mean, that's what it's going to come down to, brother against brother. And then you're going to have to deal with the truth. Here are people who open their arms and open their doors to welcome us in. And what did we do? We stabbed them in the back. How do we live with that?
Hmm.
That is the situation that they will have to deal with. Nazim?
Yeah, I wanted to say something about to add a bit of clarity to what my brother Halim was saying. Look, I think Hadia, myself, Halim, all of you, brother Springer, and yourself, Wayne, you know, have been trying to sort of get to this idea of truth. And I think that one of the significant, one of the consequences of not getting at the truth is that you open the door for all kind of craziness to come in.
Absolutely.
And part of this craziness is what Brother Halim was talking about, which is this messianic, apocalyptic fervor that some people from within the Jewish circle, and these are more kind of like, these are not the sort of Zionists necessarily, but the Zionists have embraced them. Netanyahu's embraced these people. And this idea of raising a pure red-haired heifer that will be sacrificed to herald in the coming of their Messiah, to build this third temple on the Dome of the Rock, or where they call the Dome of the Rock, which we call Al-Aqsa. That's special place that I've been multiple times. I've prayed on that place, and I've visited the Wailing Wall, which is the Western Wall. I've gone into Al-Aqsa and spent many hours to the chagrin of Israeli soldiers who try to prevent me from entering. Even because I'm a journalist, I didn't go at the time when visitors are expected to go there. That will not only be a catastrophic, important event that the entire Muslim world, including the Hashemite government of Jordan, which has caretaker status for Al-Aqsa, right? They have been provoking the Palestinians who have gone. So the West Bank Muslims have not been able to enter Al-Aqsa, only the East Jerusalem Muslims, and they have to be above the age of 65. Anyone below the age of 65 weren't allowed to pray in Al-Aqsa in Ramadan. Tomorrow is the last Friday of the month of Ramadan. So with this event coming up, and I'm glad that Brother Halim mentioned that Linda Sobe, the ambassador, rightfully raised this issue, because from where we are sitting, this is an important set of days coming up here towards the end of Ramadan that you could actually, it could be a spark for something larger. We've seen the bombing of the Iranian embassy in Damascus. We've seen the attack in Damascus. We've seen expansion of a bombing campaign against Hezbollah in Lebanon, where Yoav Galant basically said that we're not going to stop anywhere in the Middle East is fair game for us because we're going to crush our enemies, right? And then you have this lunatic fringe, this apocalyptic messianic fringe. You've opened the door for them, and they're income storming with their lunatic ideas, right? I'll say this why I'm putting it in this particular stark reference and amplifying the voice of my brother Halim is that when I covered ISIS and I went to Syria and Turkey, I could not for the life of me understand why ISIS was so gung ho on taking Kobani. Right, Kobani is this small little enclave, beautiful little place, peaceful. People go into Turkey. It's on the Syrian side of the border. Cross over into Turkey, and they come back into Syria, and they go back and forth, and vice versa. Turkish people visit Kobani. They, visit family and friends. People intermarry and so on and so forth across the border. Right? It's not far from Gaziantep, which is a little bit into Turkey and so on. But there's a lot of population there is very high, and the density is very high. So there's a lot of intermarriage and family uniting and so on between Turkey and Syria. But why? Why Kobani? Why was ISIS so gung ho on taking Kobani? They were bombing day and night. They were bombing Kobani. They sent 14, according to my count, Canadian ISIS recruits from Canada, from Western Canada, into Kobani, and they all got slaughtered in one fell swoop, right? Because the Russians dropped bombs on once ISIS took over Kobani, the Russian government with Syrian support, they bombed the living daylights out of Kobani. But what was important is that the apocalyptic messianic group ISIS was saying that the Mahdi, which is the Messiah for Muslims, will come and arrive in Kobani with an army of 300. They somehow felt like if they can control Kobani, that the Mahdi will come with them. They will be the army that will bring the Mahdi, right? And it's just preposterous. Now we're seeing the same messianic apocalyptic fervor raising its ugly head on the Israeli side at a time when this war is basically it can get worse. Yeah, people could just drop dead. I mean, people are dropping dead from hunger and starvation and malnutrition, right? As we've all pointed out, it could get worse, much worse. I don't know. I've not been there, but based on what I'm seeing, yeah, people could die in massive numbers. And so, the entire population of Gaza, which was 2.1 million, what it is now is much less, could die of starvation. And then you have this lunatic fringe of Messianic who want to herald in the end days, right, as if it's in their hands to rush to judgment, so to say, taking place. And these two things are combustible. So I am very nervous as a jaded older journalist, who's been watching this world and has been everywhere. I don't even think we're safe in Guyana, but I want to take Guyana or Barbados or Jamaica, where my friend Tariq Abdul Halim was, and over being in the Middle East. But this does not bode well at all.
Yeah, it is when you and that's why I said the truth has to be told, because once you have those guys who have that fringe mentality and they have a space, and as you said, a crack in the door and the window is open and they can fly in, I mean, they could do great damage. I mean, the best example of that was January 6th with Donald Trump. Storm the Capitol. I mean, they're watching everything in real time. I mean, that's what it And we were all watching at the same time. Now, if we didn't have social media and they told us, no, 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 it didn't happen, what would we say? Well, maybe. But we saw it in real time. It was a meltdown. That is when the United States became a banana republic. Come on. We saw it, right? So it is, as you said, Nazim, it is frightening because it is provocation, and this is what this guy Netanyahu is all about: provocation, so that there will always be instability, and I could always be here because I love instability. I'm the king of instability,
Yeah.
right? And that's what it is. I want to defer to
Brother
Captain. Yeah,
Salvador, let me interject here. We have Brother Denny joining
yeah,
us.
yeah, yeah. I was
Here.
just going to.
I'll
Yeah,
let Brother Denny say his statement because I know he's very active in the movement against this
exactly.
genocide. But before we do that, we are running short on time.
Time. Yeah,
Time
exactly.
is
That's what I
running
was
out.
looking at
But
too.
I want to also send our best wishes to Ambassador Ali, who we know is having her medical issues. And so I wish her well and her family, and from the family here at Entech Radio and the Global Independent Square, I wish her a speedy recovery to her surgery that is pending. Thank you. Brother Denny, please introduce yourself and say whatever you got to say. I know it's going to be good, so just go ahead.
Thank you, my brother. I'm very happy to be here with you this morning and to participate in this discussion in relation to the Palestine people. I must say that I am very, 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 very disappointed with our Caribbean leaders in relation to this issue. And I must also say that I want to condemn what Israel have just done, and we must also understand that what Israel is doing is fully supported by the British, Western Europe, North America, including the United States of America, and we must not really accept the Western media position, because the Western media at the present moment is giving you the impression that the United States and Britain is against what would have happened there in Palestine with the support workers that were murdered. But all of this is being supported by the United States of America and Britain, and they're using the taxpayers' money to support Israel with its military hardware so that they can carry out these actions. And yes, still the United States of America would put a country like Cuba as a terrorist nation. And we in the Caribbean would sit down and say nothing about that. Cuba is a country that offers international solidarity in health, education, and many other areas in terms of saving lives. And Israel is murdering children, mothers, fathers, people of Palestine. And our Caribbean leaders continue to have a diplomatic relationship with a country like Israel. That is an insult to Caribbean people. How can you continue to maintain that kind of relationship with Israel that are every day murdering the Palestine people, health workers, medical workers, journalists, people who are offering assistance to the Palestine people, and not one word from our Caribbean governments on this issue. This is really an insult to Caribbean people because we are peace-loving people. We are people who continue to defend our area as a zone of peace. And if we can do that, we should be proposing that Palestine remain an area of peace for the people of Palestine. I don't know what else Israel can do to the Palestine people for the world to take immediate action against Israel. I don't know what else they can do. I'm 61 years old and I've experienced a number of wars in this world. But I've never, ever, ever in my life experienced nothing like this. Nothing like this. And the world must take a very strong, strong position against Israel. The world should not have any form of diplomatic relationship with Israel for what they're doing to the Palestine people. And we also have to take a very strong position against first world nations that are supporting Israel and don't accept them and their statements on the Western media sites because they are the ones who are giving Israel the military hardware to carry out this kind of action. So they too are guilty. But that's all I wanted to say, and I'm very happy that you give me opportunity to share some of my views with you. But we have to find a way to organize protest action in the Caribbean to demonstrate our solidarity with the Palestine people and to put pressure on our governments to do the things that are right. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Denny. But let us not, I'm glad you're here. I didn't know you were coming on, but I'm very glad to see you. Because we also have in our backyard a place called Haiti, as we say. And there's no difference. There's no difference. We have to stand up against this tyranny. As I said, as a global citizen, and where you stop war one place, we got to stop at another. We can't isolate it and say, oh, it's terrible for the Ukrainians to have to endure the Russians, but yet the Americans and the British and the Germans, everybody allow the Zionists to run over top of our brothers. They're our brothers and sisters. They're not some fictitious person that fell out of the clouds yesterday or some mutation that came up out of the ground. So it is incumbent upon us to stand together. I am happy, Hallam, with the job you did today of bringing folks together on short notice. It is, even though we talked about it last week, we only planned this 2 days ago. And as I said, we're on our brand new platform here, which is NTech Radio. And Hallam, you are welcome here anytime. David Denny, you are welcome here anytime. Nazim, you are welcome here anytime. Dr. Wayne and I are here all the time. So let's speak truth to lies and let's get this damn thing sorted out. Because if we don't take the stance now, tomorrow it'll be in our front yard, not in the backyard, right in our front yard. They get more emboldened. The less we say, the less we take action, the more emboldened they become. They're supported by big armies and big dollars that we don't have. And that is where, it gets all messed up and gets skewed. All right. The media is controlled by the likes of their own, and so therefore they can do. But you see, we have still platforms like this that we can still speak some truth to lives. Thank you all for coming in and for being here with us today. I will let Dr. Wayne wrap up with all your final
Yes, I know.
comments. And I thank you for
Yes.
this is our first day on this platform. Wow, what a wonderful! It's not a nice way to start it, but it's
It's
going
not
to
a
be
nice
memorable.
topic.
Yeah,
It's
it
not a
is. It's
nice
going to be.
topic, but it's a topic on which we have to speak because if we don't, as you just said, and I think that's the bottom line, if we don't speak, then we want to say who's going to help us when it's our time. When they come for us, who's going to speak on our behalf?
Who's
I
gonna?
mean, let's put it as bluntly as that.
Yeah.
If we don't speak, for those who can't speak now, when it's our turn, who's going to speak for us?
Yeah.
Right? That's the position that we are. So, gentlemen, as we close, I know we might have lost Hadia. Final comments as we close out, because we are looking at the time frame and we want to keep that so that other matters can be dealt with. So, Nazim, your final words as we contemplate what may be coming.
Yeah, well, I mean, as we, to all our listeners and all of our guests here, I want to thank you for bringing this issue again to the forefront and spending the amount of time that you spend. I mean, there's not really, much. Maybe, sort of we could add that is unique, but giving this platform to people from the Caribbean, from Guyana, from Barbados, from Jamaica, from Trinidad, from other places, and our sister Hadia, who had to leave us, brings a unique perspective, our perspective, to this issue. That even though we are far away from the Middle East and what's going on in that part of the world, that we still care and we're still human beings. And you could take away a lot of things from us, but you can't take away our humanity. And I also I would ask our viewers and our listeners, wherever you may be, to pray for a peaceful resolution. We still have to believe that a peaceful resolution is still possible. Whoever holds the cards in their control. We are going to be in a couple of days, leaving Ramadan, which is one of the holiest months for us, because we fast every day from dawn to dusk, from dawn to sunset. For many people in the world, those are long hours, especially this time of the year. And if you're in the north, like in Canada, it's almost 16 hours. For us here in Guyana, it's 14 hours of fasting without water, without food. And when it's hot like it is here, it is very difficult. And so you turn to prayer. Prayer gives you a lot of comfort. And I am hopeful that if we keep praying, and doing the kind of things we're doing, or boycott of Israeli produced products, of corporations that support the state of Israel, and protesting and calling on our government to take action and be stronger in their condemnation of the state of Israel, and not doing business with the state at all, technologically, financially, or any other way. That I think that's as much as we can do. There's not much else we can do in addressing this issue. So I am going to be praying. My teachers have taught me that in Ramadan, have told us in Ramadan, every night that we should supplicate for the people of Palestine. We should pray for peace. We should pray for a peaceful resolution and saving lives. And so that's what I've been doing. That's what Brother Halim has been doing at his mosque here in Guyana. And I encourage people to do the same. And it's been an honor to be with you, Philip Springer and Wayne Soveral, and Halim and Denny and Hadia and Tariq Abdul Majid from Jamaica, who joined us briefly. It has been a pleasure, and I hope we can come back when the ambassador is with us, to the Palestinian ambassador Linda Sobe.
Yes.
We can talk again about this.
Yes. Thank you, Hal.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brother Nazim. Brother Halim, come next to you, and then we'll close out with Brother Denny.
We the people, without us voting for our leaders, they would never get into power. So we, the people who has the power, we can call on the world leaders to demand, as some of the countries demand before, immediate ceasefire by sending in UN soldiers into Israel or into Palestine, I must say, to protect them from those bombs which will be falling and those tanks which will be shelling their homes. We call on the world leaders to demand that immediate ceasefire and to stop the bombing of Palestinian and bombing of their agricultural land, and also to allow humanitarian aid into Gaza and to stop more occupation of Palestinian land and settlements, and must have for the Palestinian more protection. And unto the world to boycott all Israeli products. This is how it's going to hurt them. Call on the world, the people of the world, to boycott the Israeli product. And finally, call on the world leaders to recognize Palestine as a country, the state of Palestine, because not the Israelis have to recognize Palestine as a statehood, but the world can come together and say we recognize Palestine, just as they may put the UK and the US, they use demarcation for certain countries to be created. Palestine was there before the Zionists get there and the Jewish people get there. So you want a state of Palestine, so the world must recognize that, start to recognize that Palestine is a country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brother Halim, for your comments. And Brother Denny, we give you the last word.
Yeah. Let me say first, thanks to you for giving me this opportunity, and I really appreciate, what the work that all of you are doing, and I think this site is a very important site, and I think that you should also engage yourself in very serious discussions also about the Haitian situation, because the Haitian situation is a very serious one. Because I here again, CARICOM is making a very big mistake in relation to Haiti, because it's impossible to join with the enemies of Haiti, the countries that are responsible for the poverty in Haiti, to expect that they will do anything good for the Haitian people. So when CARICOM joined with Canada, France, and the United States of America, it means that CARICOM is making a big mistake, and they do not understand what they're doing. Because the real friends of the Haitian people in the Americas are Cuba and Venezuela. When the Haitian people were going through many serious problems with medicine and being able to have access to medical treatment, it is Cuba who sent over 400 medical workers to Haiti. Academic scholarships every year, close to about 200 academic scholarships every year for Haitian students. And not only at the tertiary level, but at the primary and secondary level in Cuba. Then you know that when Haiti went through problems with the earthquake, it is Venezuela that extended its arms and went to Haiti and built and construct houses for the Haitian people so as to help them through that period. So if CARICOM really wanted to do something in terms of helping the Haitian people, they would put the guns and the military boots and the bombs one side and talk about development, and they will engage the countries that are prepared to work towards the development of Haiti. That's what Haiti needs. All of the guns that are in Haiti and in the hands of the gangs are there because of the same three nations that I mentioned earlier: Canada, France, and the United States of America. They're the ones who are supporting the gangs and creating this condition. So, my brother, I think that we need to do a full discussion on that Haitian situation because Haiti is responsible for our emancipation. Everything came out of Haiti. Even the American independence struggle against the British
Yes.
came out of the Haitian struggle. Simon Bolivar struggle in Latin America came out of the Haitian struggle. Nanny Gregg taught the slaves in Barbados about what was happening in Haiti, and that helped to create the Bassa Rebellion in Barbados and other rebellions throughout the Caribbean region. So everything came out of that Haitian independence struggle. So we owe a debt to the Haitian people. So we need to stop talking about guns, bombs, and police and military forces and talk about the development of Haiti. I do not expect those countries that are responsible for the Haitian poverty to do anything to save the Haitian lives. Up to 2015, the Haitian people were still paying France reparations for its freedom. So these are very serious times, and we have to defend our Haitian people. Thank you, my brother.
Brother Danny, I will call upon you to arrange a show for next week. Any day. Pick any day
I don't
you
have a
want.
problem with that. I don't have a
Any
problem
day.
with
Any day you tell me in advance and we will schedule it that day. Hallam, you're welcome back again with Ambassador or whoever you want to do next
that. No
week
problem.
as
I
well.
want to organize it.
Thank you.
No
All
problem.
right, guys. It's been a pleasure. And I have to run out now and get on some other business that is urgently
Pressing,
awaiting
pressing.
me.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you all for coming. And I look forward, Hallam, to us regrouping next week. I really mean that. Let us regroup next week. I know today was kind of not quite the way you had planned it. I saw some other people coming in the back room too, but they didn't stay or didn't. I'm not sure what the issues were going on there. But let us redo this. Let's repackage this. I would say next Thursday would be a great day for you, Denny. I want to see either Tuesday or Wednesday for Haiti. You let
I
me
think
know.
we'll have the Boston holiday coming up. I think it's Wednesday or Thursday, Nazim.
No, it's going to be Wednesday. Yeah, most likely Wednesday.
Thursday.
Wednesday.
Wednesday or Thursday is a good day. Wednesday or Thursday is
No, no,
good.
no,
What day?
no,
Thursday.
no, no, no. For us,
Oh, no,
for
for
us,
you. Oh, for your day. Okay. All right.
it is Eid, the end of
Oh,
Ramadan.
Right.
right, right.
So,
So Thursday would be better than Wednesday for
Thursday
you.
is still risky, but it's better. Yeah.
Okay, so we will figure a day
We
out
can
then.
plan accordingly. There's no rush. We just
We
plan
plan
Even
good.
accordingly.
Tuesday, you can do Tuesday. I think it's important that we keep this conversation going. I really
Or
do
Tuesday,
believe
yeah,
that.
Tuesday.
So Tuesday would be great. Wednesday, Danny, you and the Haitian counterparts, and Friday, of course, Dr. Rain is your day. You usually. So we good. We good.
Not a problem.
We'll work out something. Yeah.
yeah.
All
Thank you,
right. So thank
gentlemen.
you. Thank you,
All right.
gentlemen,
Thank
for
you.
everything. And let's keep together. Let's stay focused.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye bye.
Thank
Bye
you, my
bye.
Bye-bye.
brother.
Shalom. Shalom.
Shalom.